Welcome back to the Revamp podcast. Super excited to have Kira here today with us. Going to talk about some short-term rental, mid-term rental. That's kind of like a niche that you think you've kind of dialed in and everything.
Yep.
If you're new here, make sure to hit like and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us. And Kira, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, super excited. It's funny because I don't know what the term is, like long-time lurker, first-time caller.
Yeah.
I feel like,
That's a saying.
yeah, we've never met in person until today, so it's kind of going to be interesting because like you don't know anything about me.
I know a little. We've had conversations. We've talked, you know.
So it's going to be really interesting because I think it's going to be a little different that, you know, it's purely you're going to be learning about me as everybody else learns about me. So I think it's going to be really cool.
No, yeah, it's fantastic. And that's why I thought that it would be super valuable to have you on the podcast and everything for listeners and everything. And we were kind of talking about this a little bit before we started, right? Is like the relatability, because sometimes it's like, I have guys that I looked up to when I started and everything that, you know, they'd flipped 500 houses or whatever. But their knowledge and experience and where they're at and the advice that they're going to give someone like me when I was just starting out 10 years ago, it's not relatable. Therefore, it's not digestible, right? You're better off learning from somebody that's like 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, not 20 steps ahead of you.
It's a little intimidating sometimes when you go into a room and somebody has been accomplished for 20 plus years and, you know, they're fast talking and they're using acronyms. Like acronyms kill me. I hate when somebody who's an industry professional, right? Jargon. And it's in every industry. It's not just real estate, but like sometimes you approach some of these people that have been in it for years and it's so overwhelming. So sometimes it's nice to kind of have that person. I'm newer in the real estate industry.
Newer, but crushing it.
Crushing it. Yeah. I like to think so. I hope so.
No, you found a niche that's working for you and everything, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Take us back to the start. So I know you started in the world of real estate in 2020, but let's go back a little bit before that and what you were doing.
So I have my elevator pitch like down because it's really unique, and I feel like it's something that I perfected telling people like in job interviews and whatnot. Because it's funny, I always joke that I never want to give a resume to anybody because my resume is like all over the place. If I can sit down and have a conversation and explain my backstory, it's so much more interesting and engaging. But I graduated. I like to say I'm the quintessential millennial. I, unfortunately have hit, if you're a millennial and you understand, every roadblock. I'm not even 40 yet. And I've been laid off 5 times. I'm on my 3rd career. Not even 40 yet. I did everything I was supposed to do. I was a straight A student. I played sports. I was in clubs. I took AP classes in high school. Like I was that girl that was going to be successful. If you wrote on the wall, I'm a Capricorn, right? Like I'm not even into astrology, but like I am that girl. Everybody knows that girl in high school. I went to Penn State. I went to main campus all 4 years. I was in a sorority. I was in a business fraternity. I played sports. President of clubs. But I graduated in 2008. I graduated right at the pinnacle of the recession.
Yep.
Graduated college thinking I've had internships, I've studied abroad, I did everything right. And it took me 6 months to find a job. And the job I got was a receptionist. So here I am. You
did everything
right. I have a bachelor's in business. It's not like, I was philosophy or something.
Right.
I have a business degree in marketing from Penn State University, a couple minors, cannot find a job. Finally got a job. It took me 6 months and I was a receptionist and I was making $26,000 a year. So for my ego, when I'm being told my whole life, you're going to be super successful, do these great things, and not knocking receptionists at all. But my potential was so much more than that.
Yep.
And I'm so glad I learned at 23, that kind of rug pulled out from underneath you. A lot of people go a lifetime and they're 15, 20 years into it until they learn that lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I just got goosebumps there a little bit because I think about that. Like I see people in real estate and business in all different areas that are just totally crushing it, but they've never actually been punched in the face yet. Right. And it's like, sometimes that's the worst thing, is not experiencing hardship and things not going the way they're supposed to early on.
Exactly. Hitting that adversity that early. So I had this job. You were just lucky to have a job. So, it was kind of a punch in the ego that like, I'm a receptionist. I was doing that when I was 14.
Right.
And here I am 23 with a college degree from like a world-renowned university. I did everything I was supposed to do and it didn't work out for me. I was so excited to finally have a job. And of course, $26,000 when you're 23 and you were making tips as a waitress. Yeah. That's still great.
It's still like, yeah, I'm making money.
Awesome.
I'm doing it. I'm in the real world.
I'm doing this. And I had just signed a lease. I was living with my parents, so I didn't even really have much financial responsibility. I had just graduated college, and until I found a job and I was going to fly the nest, I had just signed a lease for a house with a group of friends in Manayunk. Okay. So I now have financial responsibility and a legal obligation in this lease, and I got laid off. 6 months, took me 6 months to find the job, worked for 6 months, and they had a massive downsizing. And I was the first to go.
Shit.
So now I'm back. Now I have financial responsibility. I have a lease signed. So again, punch in the gut, but you had to do what you had to do. It was the rug pulled out.
Right.
Now I'm collecting unemployment, which I know nothing about. I'm collecting unemployment, and I got a waitressing job in Manayunk. It was back at the old Kildare's, like to date myself, right? Like so.
Gotcha.
But it was great. I was 23, so it was social.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. My friends all got free drinks. I got to know the bartenders. Like I was 23, it could happen. But I had to do what I had to do to pay my rent.
Right.
And it's funny because now having the hindsight 2020, and I'm this big adult and all this kind of stuff, seeing people post online, like on Facebook and whatnot, like I've been searching for 6 months to find a job. I've been searching for 8 months, but they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to go get a job at Wawa. Yeah. Right? Like,
yeah, they have too much pride.
Yep. And it was, you just had to survive, but it taught me really early on how to like pivot when needed to, and what am I good at, and how do I use what I'm good at to get over these adversity hurdles. So eventually, to again totally date myself, and millennials will understand, the second job I found on Craigslist.
Okay.
So
I love it.
This was before LinkedIn. It was before.
I can't wait to see where this is going.
Yeah,
I can see this being a real shifty job.
Yeah. Like, when I said my like backstory is crazy. So I found this job on Craigslist. It was a small family-owned company. It was in Conshohocken, so great. I'm living in Manayunk with my roommates. It's close. And it was for a sales assistant position supporting the sales team. So at least it was in my wheelhouse of sales and marketing, which I was comfortable in. Yep. $30,000 a year. And now, again, this was back when I should have been making $50,000, $60,000 as a new grad. I'm making 30 because they know, but you were lucky again to have a job.
Was that position like salary only, or
was it salary only
plus commission?
No, because it was basically like an executive assistant position as a sales assistant. So salary only. There was no bonuses, no benefits. I think I maybe had health benefits. Okay. I don't even remember, because when you're 23,
yeah, you don't care about that stuff.
Whatever,
anyway.
It's not. Yeah. Which is so funny how that changes as you get older.
Oh yeah, well, because it becomes very necessary. Absolutely, yeah. We start falling apart
when you're 20 something. You're like, well, I'm going to do what I enjoy, right? And then as you get older, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but yeah. So I had this job. A monkey could do it. I mean, and again, not knocking, but like, I was proficient in Excel. I was doing VLOOKUPs. I was doing, I have a business degree from Penn State. Like, we learned all these things that like data entry was, so I was like upgrading systems. They had a, I don't know if you remember this. Remember perforated paper? Yeah. So like they would have those printers that had like the holes on the side. Yep. And it was perforated and it would come out and like fold. Yep. they would print their entire sales reports on these stacks of paper and manually enter the data into the spreadsheet that Susie so-and-so created. It took months.
Seems slightly inefficient, but it's
months for them to analyze their sales data. I come in, I run a script in Excel, I ran a macro and did a pivot table, and in a few hours, here's your yearly sales report.
No crap.
Months to hours, here's your sales report. So I'm demonstrating value.
Yep.
Right? And the girl who was in the marketing department quit because she wasn't getting paid what she was worth. I knew we were friends. I knew she was making $10,000, $15,000 more than me. They promoted me into that job. I was ecstatic. I'm doing marketing. I'm doing what I want to do. Oh, by the way, I have all these reports that I've created and made way more efficient. So they're going to give me such a raise.
Yep.
$2,000 raise. They gave me a $2,000 raise for insanely more responsibility, knowing that they're saving $15,000 on what they were paying her.
Right.
They gave me a $2,000 raise. So getting kicked in the shin that hard when you were putting your all into this job.
Yep.
Right? Again, I'm 24, 25 maybe at this point. And I learned when you work really hard for somebody else, sometimes all you get's more work.
Very true.
Right? Thank you.
How big was this company?
Very small.
Really?
Yeah,
because
very
I
small.
feel like it's more often that you hear that happens in large corporate type of settings where you do have to climb the corporate ladder and there's some politics and everything.
With the
when it's a
managers.
small company, it's like, oh, well, I can kind of rub shoulders with the owner kind of deal.
And I was supporting the vice president
happen.
of marketing. But don't forget, it was 2008, right? So they can't, their justification is our belts are tight.
Yeah, right.
Right. So
you're lucky that we're still here.
Thank you for all your hard work, but like you're lucky to have a job. Now this is like 2010, but still it hadn't recovered.
Yeah. The
fully.
economy was still,
they were struggling with their finances and whatnot. But yeah, you would expect, it was like family. I was friends with it was maybe 30 people in the whole company in the office.
Yeah,
very,
small.
very, very, very small. And it was a family-owned company. So you would have thought, at least even the respect. And it was a straight like, thank you for your hard work. Here's more work. And we're not going to compensate you for the value you've demonstrated. So I quit. I didn't even have another job. I just quit.
Like right after they kind of moved you into that role, or did some time pass, or was it like, hey, we're putting you in this position and you're like, hey, I'm out?
Yeah, they kind of screwed me, which I kind of had an inkling, but again, I'm new. I've only been working for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't really know how this, like you said, like the corporate ladder and the politics and the bureaucracy. I didn't really know. And she had quit. They needed somebody in that role. I filled that role. I helped her. So I already was doing some of
kind
her
of
work.
already knew the responsibilities.
Exactly. I have a marketing degree, so it was, natural. They basically said, do you want her role? And I said, maybe. How much money am I going to be making? And what are my responsibilities? Oh, well, we'll just have you go in the role. We do all of our salary readjustments, reviews in January. And this was 3 months. I had to wait 3 months. 3 months. And in January, we'll discuss compensation. And I had a meeting where I was like, you're asking me to jump off a cliff and telling me the ground is close. Like, I have to give up, I have to sacrifice my other job, which is easy peasy. Like I come in every day and I'm playing, Freecell on my computer. Every time my boss walks by, I'm, on a spreadsheet, but like the spreadsheet was done 3 days ago, right? Like
getting it done though.
Right. Like I made this month-long process in hours.
Yep.
So, anything.
The value's there,
Yeah, dragging my feet to make it look like I was busy, right? So they basically said, well, you'll do your old job and this job for 3 months, and then we'll move you until we find your replacement. But trust us that we'll compensate you accordingly. once your review comes. So being stupid, but just being glad that I had a job. And it's a small company, and I love these people, and they're like family. They'll do me right.
Yeah.
Nope.
So you did do the job for like 3 months, and then you
months.
had the kind of sit down, you had the review.
Yep,
and
had the
like,
review, and I'm all
here's
excited.
Your $2,000.
Yeah, here's our offer, sort of thing. And yeah, I you always had heard you don't quit a job without another one. 2010, it's really risky to quit your job without having a replacement. But did
you try to negotiate like more at that time?
So I had actually interviewed for another job, and it was still up in the air of whether I was going to get the offer or not. So I went back to my company and said, hey, listen, I quit, but they're offering me X amount of money. I didn't even have the offer yet, but I went to them saying I did.
Gotcha.
Can you match this number or at least beat it? Because I don't want to go. I love you people. I want to stay.
Right.
I liked the people I worked with. I liked the work I was doing. It was that stepping stone into what I wanted to do or thought I wanted to do. And sure enough, no, we can't. Sorry. And then asked me, oh, by the way, can you finish planning the trade show before you go? Nope. Sure can't. That'll come at a premium rate. Even at 25, I was a businesswoman.
Right.
Looking back on it now and seeing like my trajectory, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm now, after doing, reading books and podcasts, and I'm an integrator, right? I'm an operations. How do we make this? How do we take that thing that took 7 months and do it in hours?
Yep.
Right. This is a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. And there's human error in the way you're doing it.
Of course.
You automate it.
Yep.
That all goes out the window. So now in retrospect, I'm like, if I could have been like a COO or like an operations person, that's like.
But that's the challenging part is like a lot of times in order to get in those roles and positions, it's usually either network that gets you in the first place, but more often than not, it's kind of a progression through that corporate ladder and everything.
And it's so
how do you get there if you're not a good freaking employee?
Exactly.
And sometimes CEOs or even COOs are not good employees, right?
And it's so interesting coming from the support roles, coming from being an assistant and being an associate and whatnot. They're the ones that run the business. The associates. They know the ins and outs of everything.
That's right.
So I always used to joke, like, why is the assistant making the least amount of money? They're the ones that are doing it. They're doing the work, So I ended up quitting that job, not having another job. And during the time, my grandmother was sick. She had dementia. She was starting to get worse and worse and worse. And my poor dad was working full time, and she was starting to fall. So he was working full time and then trying to go take care of her at night afterwards. Meanwhile, I'm quarter life crisis, 25, unemployed, going, what am I going to do? Right? Like I can go get an MBA.
And then what?
Great. Now I'm in debt and I'm still in the same boat. I don't have experience. I'm just more educated. A lot of it
seems like a catch-22.
It is, absolutely. And like all this money for what? I'm still in the same spot. It doesn't really get me much more. Again, this is 2010. And so I said to my parents, I was like, listen, you know what? I'll go live with Oma. She's German. I'm going to go live with Oma and I'll take care of her. And you guys get to save on caregivers, right? Because they're so expensive, like in-home caregivers. And she doesn't have to go to a home just yet. And you guys can pay me half of what you would pay a caregiver, right? So I did that for a year. I moved in with my grandma. And I was having my quarter life crisis at 25. Like, what do I do? And what I had said earlier about how funny it is when you're an adult deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life versus when you're 18, right? You're a high school kid.
Yep.
What do you enjoy?
No idea. Yeah. You have no idea.
No.
I would argue that nobody really knows.
Right.
Like, you know,
For
I don't care
sure.
how old you are, you know, like
Right.
to this day, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my fucking life.
And
you kidding me?
I always laugh because of how fragmented my path has been. When people say, what's your 5-year goal? What's your 5-year plan? I'm just like, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And if I've learned anything, and you'll hear from, again, the rest of my trajectory, but people who sometimes are so focused on one goal, they miss out on opportunity, right? They're so narrowly focused towards, you know, like this one thing that they miss your software system, right? Your podcast. Like, you do so many other things that if you were just solely flipping, solely landlording, solely whatever, you miss these opportunities that could spin off into something awesome and something great.
They could, and it's a blessing and a curse of the entrepreneur, right?
For sure.
Because we all have shiny object syndrome to some degree.
Not me, I'm an integrator.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. It's like there is such a superpower in laser fucking focus.
Absolutely.
And that's how I scaled up my wholesale company, right? Like I stopped focusing on flipping. I stopped focusing on buying rentals.
Right.
All that I did for probably 3 years of my life is I'm figuring out how to scale my wholesale company. I'm working on sales, marketing, teams, leadership. That's it.
Right.
And, you know, it worked out well for me.
But you didn't leave those other opportunities. You always said yes to other opportunity as it came up. You didn't, sometimes, I mean, you made judgments, right? Yes. You made a judgment of whether or not this is worth your time or whether the ROI is going to be there. But it's those people that are like, for instance, in my case, if I was like, it's marketing, I'm a marketing person. No, I am going to do everything I can to get to that marketing career.
Yep.
Sure, people are successful absolutely doing that. But in today's world, if you can't pivot when you need to or when you see opportunity, my dad worked for the same company for 40 years. You find me one person our age that has worked for a company longer than 20, 15.
Yep.
Right? It's just like, it's not the world we live in anymore.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I mean, you have your goals and you have, you know, steps together. So my next thing, working with my grandmom, I realized I'm good at this and I like this. I have patience that I didn't know I had. She had dementia. So, you know, I had to dress her. I had to walk her through the house. I had to get her up out of chairs. I had to feed her. I had to, you know, do all these things. It takes so much patience.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine.
And I would see my mom interact with her, and my mom was just very, not to knock my mom, but she was just very impatient, very fragile, you know, very frazzled, didn't kind of know what to do. And I was just really good with her. And I thought, I was always into sports. I always played sports. I played, you know, beer league, flag football, and soccer, and, you know, all these volleyball. And I thought, I should become a physical therapist. And I want to work with geriatric patients because I like this. I'm enjoying letting her keep her dignity, those sorts of things. Interacting with her, I got the most precious personal experiences with my grandmother in the last few years of her life, getting to really know my grandmother, even though, you know, she wasn't fully my grandmom at the time.
Right.
My Oma. So yeah, again, being an overachiever, I enrolled in Delaware County Community College. I have a business degree. I got all my sciences done in a year, accelerated.
Wow.
So Chem 1, Chem 2, physics, anatomy and physiology, physics, biology, 1 and 2 of all of them in a year, 4.0, all my classes. And within a year applied to PT school, which is very, very hard to get into because there's a lot of competition and you basically need a 4.0 in everything. Got into my top choice, got a scholarship, started PT school. Within a year of deciding. Yeah. Now, interestingly, why PT, right? Beyond, I think I'm going to be good at this.
Yeah, because do you think like your bias was, well, I did good at this, and yes, I have patience, and I kind of have the temperament for it, but it's like that's somebody that's kind of near and dear to you. Did you feel that like, well, if it's not a personal connection, that I don't know, maybe I won't have the same level of...
Yeah. I like old people, so I kind of knew. I feel like they're so interesting, right? Like they all have these crazy stories, and like if you ever just sat down and talked to an old person, like it's so interesting because it was a different time, like different world that they grew up in.
Definitely.
So I always enjoyed that.
Okay.
But the business side of my brain, it was, yes, I'm good at this and I enjoy working with my grandmother and I love my grandmother. The difference between being 18 and being, I think I was like 27 at this point, is their job security, right? I just went through the worst job insecurity for the past 4 or 5 years.
So you felt you would be more secure in that field, in that industry.
Baby boomers are getting older. Right. So
everybody's getting older every day.
Everybody's getting older every single day. And the baby boomers are the biggest generation that are about to hit being geriatric. Right. So there's going to be a massive need for caregivers in geriatric field.
Okay.
So there's job security. You always need a physical therapist. Regardless of whether, even if I stayed in geriatrics, there's always pediatrics. There's outpatient orthopedics.
You got options.
You got
options. Angles.
Exactly. One other thing I've learned is in corporate world, you are so pigeonholed by your job title. So if I was a marketing associate on my resume and I applied, but I worked with finance, I worked with sourcing, I worked with IT, I worked with all these different departments, especially in a small company. I had a hand in all operations.
Right.
Those were my bullet points, but my job title said marketing associate. When I would go to apply to jobs that were slightly out of the reach of marketing, because I worked with sourcing for companies in China, I worked in the finance department. I helped the IT department refine their processes.
Yep.
But, this says you were a marketing associate, right? In corporate world, you are your job title, regardless of what you've done. In physical therapy, you're a physical therapist.
That makes sense.
You're a licensed physical therapist.
That makes sense.
The other thing I learned in 2028, I was a marketing professional. That guy who got laid off from his finance job can do my job. I can't go do the finance guy's job. I'm not specialized. I'm that first person that's going to get let go because it's marketing, right? I'm replaceable easily. Not to say that anybody can do marketing, but this was like before social media. This was before it was like you kind of needed to have experience knowing. It was digital marketing. It was ad clicks. It was email marketing, white papers, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So again, I learned that lesson really young. So when it came to my career change, now I'm specialized. I'm Dr. Kira D'Annunzio. I have a license to treat. I passed my boards that you cannot be a physical therapist. I can. So there will always be jobs because I still have my license.
Okay.
Right? So.
Oh, man, we're going to have to go back and redo the intro. I got to intro you as Dr. Kira.
It's not
it seems doctors get very offended when you don't address them as doctors. My bad.
I've learned no ego early on, right? So I do not go by Dr. Kira D'Annunzio, especially when it's irrelevant in real estate. In PT, absolutely, I'm Dr. Kira D'Annunzio. So it's so interesting when you're 18 and somebody's trying to tell you, like, choose what you want to do for the rest of your life. You have no experience with anything other than maybe a club in high school. And your priorities are so wrong.
Of course.
Your priorities are, what do I enjoy? What's going to,
you don't know yourself enough yet.
No.
Like, you don't know, like.
And you haven't struggled, right? So at this point, and it's funny because my last role, I managed people, and finding what your motivation is, right, is huge. And that's shaped once we eventually get into my, real estate career, because I am in real estate. I swear I'm in real estate.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
It's a long story. But it's finding out what your motivation is, right? So now I'm 27. I've had a horrible career up to this point. I've had no career up to this point. 27.
Just kind of bouncing around.
Trying to get started. And I'm so good at what I do. And it's like, how come nobody is seeing this? That, like, I'm a hard worker. I'm really good at finding inefficiencies. Now I know I'm an operations person. Like if I had found that then, I'm passionate about operations. And I'm good at it. So become a PT. I just totally lost my train of thought. Job security. Specialized. They make a lot of money. At least that's what Google told me. Later found out, we had a conversation upstairs. Later found out that's not always true. Job security, make a lot of money. The other was advancement. So that was something that I thought that there would be advancement, that you could become a director. You could become, there was a ladder to climb.
Got it.
That was important to me, right? Because I'm an overachiever. So I always need something to achieve.
There's got to be,
somewhere to grow. So I was like, that was more so not just I'm good at this with my grandmother. It was framed as boom, 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 boom. These are all things I didn't have in marketing that were important to me. So graduated 2017, got my first job. Also in 2008, I was invested in the stock market, albeit, a couple thousand. You're 23. Like I wasn't invested a ton in the stock market, but I wasn't seeing any growth. Right. It was the stock market was anyway. 5 years in, and I've made $5,000 in 5 years. I lost a lot when the market would change. And I was poor because I was only making $26,000 out of school. So I started to teach myself finance. I had a business degree, but that was my weak, I was a marketing major. So like the finance classes kind of went over my head. The way they were taught, I didn't get it. So I started learning personal finance.
Okay.
And I started to learn that how do I make my money make me money, right? I was raised very fiscally conservative. My parents have a fair amount of money. I'm from Malvern. My dad worked for Pico for 40 years, so he had job security. But, we went to the shore during the summer. That was our vacation. We had one vacation a year, and we went to the shore, right? We didn't go to Paris. We didn't do all these things. We wore the same clothes. We didn't have cable. Like, my parents were very budget conscious, and they taught me that value of money. And we always joke, because my brother, if he had a quarter in his pocket, he had to spend it.
So he was the opposite end of the spectrum.
Where I would get my jollies from looking at my bank account and seeing that number get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Like that.
That is funny though, like that dynamic of, one child is this way and the other child close in age, in the way they were parented and everything. Older than me. Yeah, how is he totally polar opposite? Interesting.
It's so interesting, and it was just different in values. He valued possessions, and I valued how rich am I, right? So, I don't know why, but every morning I would check my bank account and I would see that number, and how do I get that number bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger? And to me, that was kind of success, right? Like
it's a scoreboard.
It was success, and it was also the safety. It was the safety net, right? Because
Why do you think you needed to feel the safety of it?
Because I couldn't rely on a paycheck. So I had been laid off now at this point twice.
I don't trust the company that I'm working for. The rug could be pulled again, metaphorically, tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it was a lot of the job insecurity of I'm doing everything right and it's not working out. And now I have to rely on somebody else for my security and my safety, right? For my paycheck, to pay my rent, if I have to rely on somebody else. So I really got into personal finance and how do you make money. And I was doing CD laddering, and I was learning. And as I'm learning about personal finance, a repeated fact was that real estate's a vehicle towards wealth, right? That phrase was repeated over and over and over again. So even before PT school, I started saving up because diversification. If you're only in the stock market and the stock market tanks, you're screwed.
Yep.
Learn that at 23.
Experienced that one too.
Real early. And again, taking a positive attitude from all of this, right? So I could have just been like, F this, I'm done. I've tried a million times, but it taught me personal finance. It taught me responsibility. It taught me how to pivot. It taught me I need to diversify and I need to learn other things because I cannot rely on anything at this point. And I kept reading about real estate. So in my head, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy an investment property at some point because I don't trust the stock market.
Yep.
And that would be something that is a tangible asset, right? At the end of the day, if you lose money, you still have a tangible asset. You own land. It's a physical thing. It was interesting. This is before podcasts and whatnot, but people always said if the end of the world came and you had a goat, the goat is going to be more valuable than the money.
Absolutely.
It's a tangible asset.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, goat's not worth anything right now, but at the end of the day, it's a tangible thing that provides value. It's value, not what the actual thing is you're exchanging. So, all right, I'm going to get into real estate at some point. That's a goal for me. I want to own my own home. To me, it was like, if I own my own home, that was success, right? I don't know why.
So this is still your like 27, 28.
This was, I'm around 30. I had just finished grad school. I'm now a physical therapist.
Got it.
Now I'm making, $100,000 a year, a little less. It was about like 80,000 I was making, which still isn't great when you look at considering I'm 30 something and now just starting to make a good income. Not saying 80 is not a good income, but comparatively, like at that point, 10 years ago, I should have been making upwards.
Based on what you had done.
Exactly.
And,
I should be up in the 100,000s at that point. And for PT, I thought I was going to be making a lot more money than I was. Having a doctorate degree, having at this point 8 years of education, again, like you run that race that they tell you and you get to the end of it and you're like, this isn't what they said it was going to be, right? Loved it. Loved working with my old people. Loved working with the patients. Really got to talk to old people and whatnot. But again, it was the bureaucracy. You're making $100,000, but you're not salaried. And the way it's structured is just messed up. You get points. So you're basically only paid for the time you're in front of a patient.
Okay.
You're compensated for it would be like, here's $100 to go see this patient, right? But that entails you calling the doctor, you scheduling the patient, you rescheduling the patient because they're old and they forgot you were coming, you planning your map to go around to all the patients' houses. Oh, by the way, you have to write a couple hours of notes at night. So that $100 now is 5 hours of work. Now you're getting paid $25 an hour.
Right. Yep.
To have a doctorate in a medical field.
Not quite as sexy as it seemed than what you signed up for.
Right.
Yeah.
So real quick was like, no, thank you. My value is worth more than that again. So, I ended up kind of moving back into like the back office kind of thing. Cause again, I have a business degree. So I got into kind of the businessy side of it and loved it.
With the same company that you were with?
Yeah. So the company that I was a PT for, I actually worked at Temple Hospital and I became a liaison. So as people were being discharged from the hospital, I would review their medical charts and get them set up with home health with my company.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of sales and marketing, which is what I was, my previous career. And I would still have the clinical aspect of it, talking to patients and whatnot, and getting them started with services. And I loved it. I was making good money. I bought my first house. I bought my house.
Love it.
Because that was my goal, right? Like you are successful if you own a home. I don't know why that in my head was like, maybe from all this research I was about real estate.
Well, I think that's just a traditional belief anyway.
Yeah.
Just like grow up, go to school, get educated, get a job, buy a house. It's like, that's a part of it.
Right. And of course, like my parents' mortgage are paid off and they're telling me, we own our home full outright and whatever. So this was 2019. I bought my first house by myself. I'm single. I've been single forever. Bought a 3-bedroom, beautiful house in Roxborough. It's a twin, great street. Like if you know Maniac Roxborough, it can get it's city. This was like a beautiful gem of a street that like felt kind of suburban. I had a fenced in backyard with white vinyl fencing. I had a dog, so she got this huge yard in the city, built a fire pit out back, like it was great. And, I always had the idea, it was a 3-bedroom house. It was just me. I could rent a room and be a landlord and get somebody to help me with my mortgage. Now, this is 2019, so I got a steal on this house in retrospect. My interest rate was 3% on this. My mortgage was $1,400, I think. No, even less. I think it was like $1,350, which at the time is like comparable to rent.
Yep.
For a 1-bedroom, right? So I got a 3-bedroom house. Like that was back when like the good old days.
Times have changed.
Times have changed. A little bit. So that was my first experience. And what I want to get into with some of the real estate things is the importance of understanding the value of your property and who your avatar is for that particular property. So now I'm in real estate. I self-manage my own portfolio. I have 5 properties, 5 doors. So I'm small potatoes, but I just started in 2020, really 2019 when I bought my house.
Yep.
That was kind of the impetus. But I started to learn about real estate investing. And you don't need gurus. No offense, you don't need to follow Drew. Yep. Follow Drew.
Make sure to subscribe.
But you don't.
I don't sell anything.
No, I know. But you provide value, right? Like your content is value. And which is interesting. And I'm sorry, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but
story of my life. Story of my life.
I went back through some of the podcasts. I am the first female that you have had that was not a realtor investor.
Ooh.
So
okay.
All of the women, because at first I was like, am I the
true.
only woman that's been on the show? And I went back and I'm not. You've had women.
Yep.
But they've all been realtors.
That's a good assessment. Yeah. Even last week I had Janelle Logan, and she is also an agent. She has a team and everything, and she's also an investor, but
so it's very common for
By the
women.
way, people are very blown away that I myself am not an agent. They're like, you flipped all these houses, you own a wholesale company, you do all this,
you don't
and
need
you're
to
not
be
an agent?
You don't need it.
No, you don't need to be.
You really don't. And it's so interesting because looking at getting into real estate, it was like, oh, do I have to become a realtor? And what is like...
Well, traditional, logic would tell you yes, that's what you do.
You get into real estate by becoming a licensed realtor.
That's right.
And you don't have to. And like... I really got into like women's investing. I don't know if you've heard of Invest Her.
I have not. No.
Okay, it's now under the.
I don't
umbrella.
think I'm the target demographic.
No, you're not. We're like anti-men. No, I'm kidding. But men are very welcome in our space. It's just we're very like pro women. But no, it's now under the Bigger Pockets umbrella. Okay. And I don't know if I can like plug this, but
absolutely.
It's investor, and it's, to promote women investing. What tends to happen is, and not to knock the people that are on your show, but it's a very male-dominated field. It's these guys, like we talked about earlier, these guys have 100,000, they're millions of dollars, and they're, boisterous and they're loud and they have something to say and they're opinionated, and it can get so overwhelming as a new investor, let alone a woman investor, when you're in this kind of like testosterone space.
That makes sense.
So what Invest Her really does is it gives you kind of access to those resources in a lot more gentle introduction.
Digestible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course you have high-powered women that are presenting and whatnot. So it's just nice to kind of not get like railroaded, that you can participate and there's no stupid questions and, those sorts of things. So it's really awesome.
That's very cool. So you got involved in that program kind of like as you were starting? Yeah. Or was that something that you found after
I got started? Yeah. So what ended up happening was I was working as a PT, or working as this in-between PT, this liaison, and COVID hit. So I'm doing PT hospital-based stuff. So recession, 2008, changed careers, COVID. Like, had this great job I thought was so secure, nothing could touch me. COVID. Who could have predicted pandemic? Right? But it's the story of my life. I'm so used to figuring shit out when I need to figure it out that it was like, well, here we go again. Right? A lot of people got really depressed during COVID. Like, they had rugs pulled out from underneath them. And to me, it was like...
It's like we talked about, the first time for them. It was their first time getting kicked in the teeth.
Their first time, and you're locked in your house and you have nothing to do. And a lot of people really leaned into the nothing to do thing.
Yeah.
They enjoyed because it was a change of pace. I knew from having rugs pulled out, I don't do well with nothing to do. Mentally, I don't.
I fully understand.
You're an entrepreneur, right?
I would go crazy.
Yeah. Bonkers. So I knew immediately, all right, how do I make this an opportunity? Right? So again, if you were just pigeonholed in one way, you're looking at it as, how do I get back to where I was?
Yeah. Yep.
But here it's like, not to get political or anything, but I was making a salary in stipends, right? So I got let go from my job. I was collecting those stimulus checks.
Yep.
I got a severance from getting let go. And between that, unemployment, and the stimulus checks, I was basically making a PT salary by not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And a lot of people were, and they unfortunately did not look at it from a positive perspective like you are, and productive.
I'm getting paid. I might as well figure out what my next move is.
Yep.
So I thought, well, now it's time to get into real estate. Now's the time. I have the money. I have the savings because I'm not a spender. I'm a saver. Let's start looking. I have found every single one of my deals on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. I have spent no money marketing. I don't drive for dollars. I don't do any of those things. I have 5 doors. I got them all from Facebook. So I had nothing to do. I was on Facebook all day, right? Little tidbit for the viewers, but I'm just on, and a lot of people say, how do you get started? How do you find your deals? You're searching the MLS. Your deals don't work anymore now, right? It's networking. It's knowing people. It's talking to people. It's learning what are there. And I learned that from physical therapy. Everybody's got a story and everybody has a motivation.
Absolutely.
So I was on neighborhood groups in Facebook. And my first deal, a tenant wrote in the neighborhood group, oh no, my land, this is 2020. This is about August 2020.
Okay.
So COVID's been a couple months at this point and still kind of didn't know what was happening.
Is the world falling apart? Is it not?
And in the real estate industry now, I have been studying real estate on my own for about a year, looking into it. Nobody knew what was going to happen. It was when landlords were kind of in a panic, like, is the market going to tank like 2008 or 2008 again? Nobody knew what was happening. So a lot of landlords, especially the old tired retiree landlords, were just get rid of it, right? Offloading properties. So it's in Manayunk. I'm living in Manayunk, and a tenant had posted, we've lived here for 20 years. I don't know what I'm going to do. The landlord's selling. And she posted a picture of the for sale sign. I looked it up. And turns out it's a duplex. Now, I rented a 1-bedroom, 1-bath duplex when I was in PT school.
Okay.
In Manayunk, Roxborough. They don't exist. They're very rare. Very, very rare. But I, as a young professional, wanted a 1-bedroom apartment because I don't want to live with roommates again. I'm 30.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not living in a 4-bedroom house with
it's got to be demand.
4 girls. That was awful, right? So there's a big demand for it, and me looking for it, I knew it didn't exist. It was rare.
Gotcha.
So she posted on this group, and I called my realtor that I had used to buy my house and said, I'm going to go look at this property. Knowing the value. I knew the avatar of knowing that property.
Because it was you.
It was me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It was me as a young professional. I would want to live there. So I go, I look at it. It's run down. It's a slumlord, tenant occupied, which at the time I was like, this is great because I'm an operations person. This will give me the opportunity to figure out how to be a landlord.
Yep.
Right? Now, in retrospect, I was lucky as hell because they were quality tenants. But I kind of went into it.
So it did have 2 tenants in
there? 2
there?
tenants.
Okay.
So upstairs was occupied, downstairs they had just signed a new lease.
Okay.
But it was a young female who was maybe a few years younger than me upstairs, and she was a nurse, so she had a good job. And downstairs had been there for 20 years.
Okay.
Which again is like,
yeah.
You rented a 1-bedroom apartment for 20 years, but she was a Roxborough townie. They were renting for $800 each, which at the time he could have been getting $1,200 for each of those. I knew my market. I lived in Manayunk for however many years.
Yeah, you were paying it, right?
I was paying it, right. I had just done all this research on what things were worth. So they were crazy under market rent, even without fixing them up. Upstairs was like, okay, she's young. She's probably pretty transient, right? Like she'll probably leave. Downstairs, there's value in keeping her,
Absolutely.
right? She's
20 years.
20 years. She doesn't want to go anywhere. And it was her daughter that had posted, what are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. So
Got it.
She was the reason I even found this property. And I knew that there was an equity build. I knew that these apartments need to be fixed up. The layouts were weird in the kitchen, and I know what I'm looking for, especially as women. Women buy real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Women are your buyers. Women are the renters. I'm sure if you said to your wife, we're going to go do this, your wife's going to be like, I have something to say about it.
Yep.
That was another lesson to learn, that you're marketing towards women when you market real estate more often than not. So we ended up, of course, the girl upstairs, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to have to increase your rent. You kind of lucked out that you're getting $800 a month. Right. Like this is unheard of. But I'm going to improve your unit and would love for you to stay. But it's worth about $1,200. We'll split the difference at like $1,000 a month, and then we'll get you up to slowly. She was like, nah, it's cool. I'm going to go buy a house. Cool. Awesome. But I learned how to be a landlord having them in the unit. Again, I did my due diligence. I did estoppel agreements. I did everything to know that I wasn't buying a property with like squatters, right?
Gotcha.
I knew they were quality tenants going into it. And if you don't know what an estoppel agreement is and you're looking at buying an occupied property, are you aware of estoppels?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes.
It's essentially, for those that don't know, it's an agreement that you have with the current tenants that they're verifying that everything on their lease is true, that there's no extra verbal agreements between them and the landlord. So it's your legal document to say like, yeah, this all checks out, basically. Right.
Because you did not have them sign new updated leases
Correct.
With you prior to you were inheriting.
Correct.
The
I had to
leases
honor
and
their
everything.
lease until the end of it. At the end of their lease, I then reapproached them. Okay, now you have to sign a new lease with me.
And that's what you were talking about with, hey, we're going to increase your rent for the girl upstairs.
Exactly.
And
We're going
everything.
to be doing improvements
Gotcha.
to your property, and some people play this game of they buy properties, low value. They get tenants that get low rent, but kind of in return for low rent, they don't have to fix anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
all the time.
Kind of this like unspoken, like, don't ask, don't, I don't want to say don't ask, don't tell, but don't ask, not, want not.
It's kind of just implied like, hey, you're only paying $800.
Right.
I understand that the place isn't,
right. Like,
it's not the Hilton, but
right.
it's $800 and market rent is 12 to 14.
Right. So kind of good luck anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I grappled morally with, am I morally okay with putting this woman out on the street, basically, who's been here for 20 years? So I approached her and I said, listen, I value you as a tenant, and I compromised, right? Like it was, what is her motivation? What's my motivation? And where it gets a little tricky, this is a business, right? I'm not buying an investment property to provide like subsidized housing for somebody. And it's horrible to say it, but why would I even get into real estate if, this is a business?
Yeah, there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of headache. There's a lot of, there's got to be an upside.
Right. And there still is heart in it. And that's what I approached her. And I said, listen, you've been a great tenant. You've been here 20 years. and she saw the writing on the wall because she saw that I was starting to come in and fix things for her. It wasn't even real. It was partially to get the property in better condition, but it was also like, your tub doesn't work. Like,
yeah,
I care about my property. This guy owns 50 properties. He probably couldn't even tell you your name, like he didn't have a mortgage. I now have a mortgage on this. He was getting paid $800 regardless, didn't have to do anything ever.
It's different.
Yep. I care, but in order to care, I need to make money. So sure enough, she moved out. The upstairs moved out. We renovated both units and rented them at the same time. This is kind of a crazy story, even when I talk about it now. Going back to knowing the value of your property. My house, that I was single, I had a 3-bedroom house, and I knew I was going to maybe rent it. Well, during COVID, let's try renting a room, right? A lot of people kind of were displaced during COVID. Put it up on apartments.com, $1,300 a month for a bedroom in my house. Yeah. It was a divorcee, a recently divorced man who basically lost his house, lost his family, and he needed a furnished place. It was my spare bedroom, so my whole house was furnished. Rooms typically you would think would go for like $700 a month. I got $1,300 a month.
Holy crap.
For a bedroom in my house.
Did you have a lot of people reaching out to you when you posted that?
He was the first person I contacted.
Really?
First person.
Were you worried about him being a serial killer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I did background checks.
Okay.
Right? I'm an operations person. I did my due diligence. He was just a guy going through a divorce, but I wrote up a lease. I had everything. And this was before I bought the duplex. This was I think I was under contract for the duplex during the time. $1,300 to rent a room in my house, but it was because I knew the value of what the asset was I had. He can go get an apartment in one of these luxury high rises, a 1-bedroom apartment. You're living with hundreds of other people with noise and this and that and the other. Or you can get a 1,500 square foot house on a nice tree-lined street. He had, I don't want to call myself a pseudo wife, but he just lost his family. And here's a young girl, not young, I was 32 at the time, whatever. But I had a dog, right? He got a dog for free out of it, right?
He got a dog for free.
He didn't have to take care of my dog. He didn't have to walk my dog. Like, he got to cuddle my dog, right? So I'm, a pleasant person, and he got a friend. He got a roommate when he was in some of his darkest times going through this divorce. That's
a cool perspective.
Yeah. And it was the value of he got to live in a home. I try to think about what was his mental condition at the time. And he was lonely.
For sure.
And he had a huge house in New Jersey that he lived in he had 2 young kids. So you have kids. Mm-hmm. Imagine that all going away.
Yeah.
Right. And now you're a bachelor living in a single apartment. Did I take advantage of him? Right? Like, that was his scenario, and that I charged him $1,300 for a room.
Right.
But he got that value out of it because we became friends. He got to come downstairs and have a conversation with somebody.
Yep.
Right?
That's huge.
We both were home alone during COVID. So I got a friend that I was living by myself.
Was this you renting that room out in your house to him? Was that prior to or after you bought the duplex and leased those out?
I was under contract for the duplex at the time. So I didn't have the duplex yet.
So he was your first tenant?
First tenant, yeah. Okay. In my house, renting a room. In your own house. And
That's ballsy.
He paid my mortgage. Yeah. My mortgage was $1,300 something. He paid to rent a room, and it was before I knew about house hacking, before I knew anything. But it just teaches you knowing what value does your property bring and who would be the person that wants to rent.
Yeah.
He fit the bill perfectly. He got a built-in friend. He got a backyard with a fire pit on a nice street in Manayunk that's like he got to live, and he was great. He played video games all day. I barely saw him, right? Like, and I'm like, okay,
Stayed
now
in his room.
Now I know why he got divorced.
Yeah, right. This
Right.
is why. This is why. But in this scenario, it works great.
Absolutely. I'm not his wife. I don't have to cook for him. I don't have to clean for him. I don't have to do any of these things. But like, okay, now I kind of see maybe where maybe he was a little bit of an absent husband. I don't know. But so during that time, I buy the duplex, I fix it up. I started dating a guy who is now my husband. I signed a 3-month lease. So that also was my first.
The guy that was living in your house.
My rental. That was also my first foray into midterm leases.
Okay.
Midterm rentals.
Gotcha.
Reason behind that was this is my house. If I hate this guy,
you want to have an out.
Don't want to be stuck with a year-long lease.
For sure.
Signed 3 months, and it was kind of like, you can renew indefinitely. Like, if this works out, you want to stay. Plus, he was kind of transient. Like, if he wanted to go get his own space, he didn't know what was going on with the divorce. So it worked out for both of us because it was a flexible lease. And if I hated him, I just boot him.
Yep.
But he ended up staying for like 9 months in my house.
Okay.
Which was great. He paid my mortgage for 9 months. So between COVID, I'm getting stimulus checks. I'm not working, all this stuff. He comes, started dating my boyfriend. My boyfriend's lease was ending. Kind of saw that it was going towards marriage. It was a long-term relationship. So my boyfriend was going to move into my house. So obviously with a male roommate. I could see that
being a little tension.
A little weird. Maybe? Yeah. I didn't want like my boyfriend at the time, like coming out of the shower and like my male roommates there. But at this point, the duplex was available. So now I own a 1-bedroom duplex that's available for rent. So my tenant, moved into my duplex.
Oh, no crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
There you go.
Never hurts to ask.
There you go.
I've got this 1-bedroom apartment, perfect for a single bachelor going through a divorce. He stayed for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah. He knew I was a good landlord. He knew I was responsive. He liked me. So that relationship building was there. He stayed in my duplex for 2 years. Since turned over the bottom and renovated as well. Now this is during COVID, so we actually renovated it ourselves.
Okay.
My dad's an engineer, but he's kind of pretty handy. Learned a lot. A lot of contractors wouldn't call you back if it wasn't a big enough deal, and contractors were like on demand.
They were very busy then.
Yeah. And I'm new and I don't know what I'm doing. And this was small potatoes. They're 800 square foot apartments. They're not very big. So a lot of guys like blew me off. This isn't worth it for a $10,000 reno, basically. Right. So yeah, we did it ourselves. I had, again, just willing to get your hands dirty and like learn and do it yourself. Figure it out when you need to. When you're up against a wall, you figure it out. I had, what were they? Chart papers, graph paper. And I was redoing we reused the cabinets that were up. They were in decent condition.
Okay.
But the layout was stupid. Didn't work. So I'm reorganizing these cabinets to re-outline this kitchen based on what I would rent. What am I looking for? That apartment was something that me as a 20-something would live in.
Yeah.
If you don't know about the Restore, Habitat for Humanity Restore, go to the Restore.
Really?
Oh my God. It's
heard of it. Never been there in my life.
You would love it as a flipper. I got literally, and I wish I could like show pictures. It was a galley kitchen. So the sink was like up against the wall, which made no sense because in order to wash the dishes, you're like leaning on this wall. It's a small galley kitchen. The kitchen was pretty big, but like,
just the way it was laid out.
Whoever designed it was like the cheapest kitchen possible to put in here. All I did was go buy a corner cabinet at the Restore for $20.
$20.
$20. They sell like full kitchens for like $4.50.
No shit.
Yeah. And like sometimes in really good condition because it's donated. It's people like who are clearing out a flip.
Interesting. Okay.
And they go, this isn't terrible. And Restore will come pick it up for free. Yeah. because then they resell it for a profit, and it benefits Habitat for Humanity. So I go and I get a $20 corner cabinet, and I made it into an L kitchen with one cabinet in the corner. I added a dishwasher because it's Manayunk and, Class A tenants.
Yep.
B+, A-. So now I have an L kitchen that looks huge compared to what it was. There's so much more countertop space. All I did was buy a dishwasher and a corner cabinet. That's it. Mm-hmm. Started renting it for $1,400. The guy was making $800 before me.
It's a big difference.
Painted it, changed the cabinet layout. That's it.
What did you end up spending in total on
$5,000.
Can't beat that.
Yeah. Fast forward to now. What was happening was my avatar for that property was young professionals, right? Mm-hmm. Recent college graduates, not current college students. What's Manayunk? People move to Manayunk because it's Play City. Yep. It's not as scary as Big City.
Yep.
Right? There's bars, there's restaurants. You have a little bit more suburban. You have, not to give out all my secrets, like everybody go buy in Manayunk. Please don't. That's my territory.
That's my turf.
It's my turf. But you have Wissahickon Park, right? A lot of young people are very outdoorsy. They go hiking, they're biking, they're, doing all these things. You have the Schuylkill River Trail.
Yep.
I call it the Hoboken of Philadelphia, right? So Hoboken in New York is that trendy young professional. The beauty with young professionals, they make a lot of money, but they don't require, this is going to sound really bad. They make a lot of money, but they don't require luxury. Right?
That's fair. That's a fair statement. Yeah.
So they can afford a higher price point.
Yep.
But it can kind of be a crappy apartment.
Yep. I get it.
Right? Like it doesn't have to be the Ritz.
Yep.
The older you get, you start to value, nicer things.
Yep. Exactly.
And you start to demand service more the older you get, right? Like if I were to go rent something, I want it to be nice.
Yep.
Right? So they're this sweet spot that I see all the time. Some of these landlords that rent to Section 8 tenants, lower class, there's a good return on them, right? Because they bought the property for super cheap. On paper, absolutely, yes. And I know.
That's a different story.
I have seen some of your posts. I know you've had this issue.
Been there.
On paper, yes, you might be getting some decent cash flow initially, but then your turnovers. I hear all the
Turnover
time.
sucks, yeah.
I'm in these landlord groups online on Facebook, and people are like, avoid turnovers at all costs. They're so expensive. The worst turnover I had was a broken shelf.
Really?
Yeah, in 5 years.
And that's interesting because typically anything that's like a 1-bedroom or a studio typically does have higher turnover than a house with 3 bedrooms, whatever.
And my turnovers were frequent, but they're quality tenants.
So they're just not trashing.
They're not doing damage. They're grad students they work in finance, right? They're a single kid who works in finance in Philadelphia. So there was no damage to anything. The worst was a shelf falling off.
Okay.
And that was probably an installation error.
So you didn't have to repaint walls.
Never.
Or
I've never once in 5 years, I've never repainted any of my units.
Holy shit.
I have carpet in one of them. I've never had to change the carpet.
Wow.
Never once. And I'm reading a bunch of these things where these people that are turnover costs. And I'm like, are you screening? What's your screening process like? Because my screening process is stringent, but I'm booked. I'm occupied 100% all my units.
So let's go there real quick.
Yeah.
For you finding people for that property specifically, a 1-bedroom in that area, how are you finding people?
Zillow.
That's
it.
So you're just posting
they come
the
to me.
property for rent on there.
Yep.
So you're not doing any sort of outreach.
Nope.
All inbound.
Nope. They all come to me. I do so little work.
I love it.
But it comes down to operations again, right? And that's where I learned I self-manage, right? And that's where the beauty is for people who are new getting into this. You don't need to be 100 units hiring a property manager
Well, you
to
can't
handle
get to
all this
100 if you don't do one,
exactly.
then two, then three,
and
then
learning
four.
that process, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of people, I always joke, and you probably fully agree with this, there is no such thing as passive income.
No,
it's a lie. It's
not at all.
A horrible, horrible lie, and
Yep.
people fall into that trap, unfortunately.
Yep.
They fall into the trap of, let me buy all these properties and somebody else will figure out all the nitty gritty,
Yep.
right? But then those are the landlords, like, avoid turnovers at all costs, and
Well, no, I think it is good advice to avoid turnovers at all costs. That is good advice.
You have to know, because if you have a good tenant, I get it. I guess it's sort of saying the same thing. If you have a good tenant, you want to keep your good tenant,
Exactly.
right? But it's finding the good tenant. And sometimes you have to go vacant for a little while until you find that good tenant.
For sure.
And that's happened. I've gone, but even then, I've maybe gone a month. The longest
bad.
I've been is a month
not
without
bad.
a tenant.
Yeah.
And it's typically during winter, right? So it's learning these like ebbs and flows, right? You know your market, you know who your avatar is. And when you can identify who your avatar is, I see all the time, like, I have this 3-bedroom house. How do I rent to a college kid? Well, the college kid's not renting a 3-bedroom house. The college kid needs 2 other friends to rent that 3-bedroom house, and they're going to trash it because they're college kids.
Yeah.
So when I am looking to acquire properties, I'm looking for what will fit my avatar. So I mostly rent to young professionals. They earn good money, but they don't really care about it being luxury, whatever. How I filter those people to get those people to rent my properties, I just post on Zillow. But here's the difference. And this is a huge tip, is you compare what other properties obviously are renting for.
Of course.
What's the condition of the other properties? What are the value that those other properties are bringing that yours either is or isn't? And are they targeting your avatar? Because if they're not targeting your avatar, they're not your competition.
How do you know if they are targeting your avatar or not?
Sort of a similar situation. If it's a 3-bedroom house,
Okay.
right? They're not going after my single young professional that works in finance.
Got it.
Right? They're not looking for that. So whatever that's priced for is irrelevant, right? They're looking for a family to rent, or a young couple that wants to grow into a family. So perfect example, I have the duplex, 1 bedroom, and then I have since bought a new primary, and we kept my old house that I had rented the room for $1,300 out to a young couple who is looking to get married eventually. They can't afford a house. My house was me as a young person who was not married. So I'm the avatar. I almost joke, I rent to me at different points in my life.
I like that.
I understand what I was looking for. I have a college degree. I made good money. I have a doctorate, a grad degree. So I know what I put up with and what I wouldn't put up with.
That's an interesting thought on it. So it's like, essentially, when you're talking with or screening tenants, you're kind of almost looking for different parts of yourself in them.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Right. And I do all my own showings, right? I don't hire a realtor to go find somebody, right? Because at the end of the day, there are some people that are good on paper and they're horrible in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
You're not going to, if you don't have that conversation, that real experience with somebody.
There was a really, really interesting, and again, we were talking about something that happened to me in college that stuck with me before the podcast, right? I'm really good at kind of finding those little things and putting them in my, brain pocket for the rest of my life. There was a question on the boards for physical therapy, and it was, what is the best way to not get sued? And of course, the answers are, provide good service. This, that,
Is this a multiple choice?
It was a multiple choice. Yeah.
Okay.
The answer was be likable. Right?
Okay. If it's multiple choice and you got to pick from one, because I would say do nothing. It's the only way.
Don't touch anybody ever.
Stay in a bubble.
Stay in a bubble. You don't sue people you like, right? It's weird.
I hesitate on that.
For sure. You'll take pause before you immediately sue somebody you don't like, right?
Yes.
I recently had a contractor. He's awful. He's an awesome dude. He took accountability for mistakes. He himself is a good person, right? His work sucks. But he is a good dude. He tried to make it right. For me, accountability is huge.
See,
right?
That's weird. I feel like those are contradictory statements, though.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like when somebody's a good person and they're likable, usually their quality of work and quality of their character kind of are in parallel.
Quality of work doesn't... You could be a good person and be shit at what you do. You could be a great person and have no business
I guess.
being a contractor.
Yeah, maybe it's just my bias.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, how you handle problems and how you take accountability and how you rectify those problems speaks to you as a person. I should sue him 6 days to yesterday, right? But he's a good dude. He took accountability. He fixed things where he could. Shit happens. He tried. I'm never hiring him again to do any more work other than little handyman jobs on my properties. But I like him. The guy who did my roof and fucked up, I don't like him because he didn't take accountability. He didn't try to fix it. When you're working with subs, a lot of time he was a general contractor. He was working with subs.
Yep.
He didn't do the work, right? The subs did it. But he was responsible for checking the quality of the work. He was responsible for making sure it was done on time, quality, all those things.
Yep.
You don't sue people you don't like. So I do all my own showings because if I don't mesh with that tenant, right, I'm pretty good at reading people, right? I've caught liars. I've caught people. I have a whole screening system. I'm a process person. Mm-hmm. And Philly, I know you don't. Do you have any rentals in Philly?
Nope.
None. Okay. For those of you who do, Philadelphia sucks.
Yeah. Everybody that I know with portfolios in Philly are running for the hills.
It's awful. But if you have your systems and your processes in place, it doesn't matter, right? So you hear all these landlords I got to get all this paperwork and lead testing. Yeah. When they sign their lease, they click a button that they're agreeing they read all these other things.
Right.
Done. I'm covered, right? If I ever have to get an eviction, ever. But I screen for people that I likely will not have to ever have an eviction. And just being flexible, right? Who is your avatar? My avatar moves frequently. They're transient, right? They're in their 20s. They meet a girl. They go get an apartment with the girl. They get a new job. They live here, but their commute's a little long, so they want to move closer to work. I had turnovers every year. They would stay for their lease and then would leave, which is how I got into midterm rentals. But I met these people who were applying. They were coming to me, right? I had within Philadelphia, you cannot deviate on your criteria, right?
Okay.
So how do you weed out these people? Set your price high. Know the value of your property. If these people can afford it, there's always somebody that can afford your property. Yeah. If you've positioned your property to target those people. So in this situation, a kid who's working in finance can afford the higher end without it being luxury.
That makes sense.
And this is going to be very sexist, and I apologize to all my other females out there. Men are the best. Because they don't ask for anything. Yeah. You guys are so just give me a roof over my head with shit that works, right? Where women are a little bit more particular. They want what they're paying for, which I did too, right?
Yep.
So it's finding that niche. For me, my target in all my properties is that B+, A-. Do I have to buy better properties in order to get that? I have to put a little bit more investment in, but I'm almost making more money out of those properties than people who have 100 doors.
Right.
Right.
Because you've reverse engineered everything, and it's you're purposefully creating the property for the person.
The experience for the person.
And so that's some of the stuff that I want to get to, like, you know, the Airbnb and everything, like everything kind of being story and theme based and everything, because it's so much ties into it. It's the marketing mind, it's the sales aspect. And
there's so much more than just providing a product and renting it, right? And like a lot of people fall into that trap of, I just need a renter, whoever is going to pay me money goes in. And then there's consequences. There's evictions, there's months at a time that you have vacancies, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's the experience. It's who is your avatar and what experience do they want from your property? Real estate's location, 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 right? Number one, location, location, location. If you want to get, you know, a Section 8 that's guaranteed government payment, you know, no problem. That's great. That's your avatar. And maybe your property fits that perfectly. But then you have to deal with the consequences of that demographic, that tenant demographic. Well,
it's pros and cons, right? Because it's like the niches are great and the riches are in the niches and everything. No question about it. But the reality is most people don't fit into that demographic of young professional, high income earner and everything. But depending for what you have going on, location.
Depending on where you buy your properties.
Exactly.
The other end of the niche is these wealthy luxury high earners, the mainliners, right? Like, so a lot of people, I think you guys are starting to focus a lot more of your flips on mainline or like suburbs, right? There's also that niche too, right? But with that niche, comes high service, you need to provide service, hospitality. So going back to your point, I don't know if you need.
Oh, good.
Okay. All right. So providing an experience. So my experience so what ended up happening was with the duplex, I was getting turnovers every year, right? So the avatar I thought was my avatar kind of isn't my avatar, right? So the problem was I'm having turnovers every year. They didn't cost me anything, right? They go into the end of their lease. The only thing it cost me... I still
think you're a unicorn on that, by the way, but my God, I'm still thinking about
when you said I'm crushing it, I mean, I'm crushing it, right? But it's because I have this marketing perspective that a lot of people do not have. In fact, a guy reached out to me off of, I don't know if you're in, probably not, 'cause you're not in Philly, but Philadelphia Landlords Connect.
No, I don't think so.
For those who are in Philly, it's great. One of my friends from InvestHer actually runs it. It's a great resource on a Facebook group that a bunch of Philly landlords, it's kind of like a collective of advice. This is my issue. Do you know this contractor? It's awesome.
Okay.
Philadelphia Landlords Connect is what it's called. I just hear these people complain all the time, and it's like, I don't have any of these problems. But it's because I've anticipated the problems and got ahead of them. So what I thought was my avatar, which was young professionals, the problem was I was getting turnovers all the time. All right. So that sucks because it doesn't cost me anything, but it sucks having to then repost it. And then I have to do showings. It's work. And, you know, when I meet people, I meet them, they meet me. And we had one girl, she was perfect on paper. She made 3 times the rent. She never had evictions. Her credit was great. She had a solid job, this, that, and the other. She sucked as a person. She was high maintenance. Like, she was asking 8 million questions that I knew this person's going to be a nightmare tenant.
It's usually easy to tell.
Call me constantly, and that's why I meet them. I don't have a realtor bring them through. I don't trust other people. Now, from a scaling perspective, not everybody could do that. Some people have full-time jobs. I had a full-time job while I was doing this too. But it doesn't take that much work to go do showings yourself. So I would get a feel. This girl looked great on paper. She sucked as a person. And I knew our personalities were going to clash. And that's where you end up with evictions, them treating your property poorly. You don't sue people you like. They like me. I like them. They put up with some shit. I put up with some shit. Totally fine. So I leaned into this transient nature that I was noticing with my property, that people are staying for a year and moving. People were asking to break their leases early because of the transientness. They got a new job. They got laid off from their job, this, that, or the other. The difference in that population is they think they're legally responsible to pay rent, right? Right. They grew up there. It was me. Like I have to pay rent. I have to go get a waitressing job to pay rent. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I leaned into it and I said, all right, well, let's try. Let's make the upstairs. The other thing that was the biggest pain in the ass, they're bringing their furniture in a duplex up and down the stairs. So there was damages constantly happening, bringing up a couch. The turn's kind of tight to get at the door, right? And nobody wanted to bring their shit up and down. The guy that was my roommate left his couch up there because it was a pain in the ass to bring it down.
Right.
So I said, it's already partially furnished. There's already a couch up there.
There you go.
And I had listened to podcasts and I did my research and leaned into it. Let's try furnished rental because what do people value in this setting? They value flexibility. They're breaking their leases anyway. Let's put it up. It's what every young professional wants. It's in a trendy neighborhood. It's in a safe neighborhood compared to the rest of Philadelphia.
Yep.
It's near the Wissahickon. It's near all these things. So put it up, furnished it, spent maybe $2,000 furnishing it.
Not bad.
Not bad. Again, it's not luxury. And 95 to 98% occupancy in the past 3 years.
Wow. So with those units prior to doing that and furnishing them, you were getting $1,400?
Yeah.
Did you stay charging the same once they were furnished?
No, I am now getting $2,200 per apartment.
But some of that is probably also, the crazy increases from the last few years, right? So like when you just went from like 1,400 to you furnished the first one, automatically you were at 2,200.
Yeah. The market rent for long term, I could probably get 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm getting 2,200, no changes to the apartment besides putting furniture in it.
Yep.
$2,200 each apartment. So I'm getting $4,400 a month.
I love it.
At 95% occupancy.
So at this time though, you were still working.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what ends up happening, so for those who don't know midterm rentals, is you can do, in Philadelphia at least, anything longer than 30 days is still considered a long-term rental. So in Philadelphia with Airbnbs and short-term rentals, you cannot do anything less than 30 days unless you're zoned properly.
And that became a thing that they started enforcing, like 2 years ago
maybe
or something?
About 2 years ago. So I can't do anything less. I'm not licensed to do anything less than 30 days.
Okay.
So really it's a month-to-month rental.
Yeah.
Right? It's not really any different. But it's your avatar. It's who are you targeting? Mm-hmm. I'm not targeting locals who want month-to-month. I'm targeting people. I have a girl right now from Minnesota.
Okay.
The guy that just left was from Virginia. So basically what you're getting is, I usually do 3-month leases because I don't need to do 1-month leases because the demand is so high for my units that I don't need to make that concession. And I think that's the other thing that's really important is knowing the value of your property. You don't need to make concessions. Mm-hmm. When you get to that target, when you find who is your buyer, who is your...
It depends on demand.
For sure. There's no other 1-bedroom apartments. I know I have something that's unique.
Yep.
The other benefit of 1-bedroom apartments, 2 people rent it. It's couples. So that $2,200 a month is $1,100 each person.
Okay. There you go. Yep.
Right? There's a king-size bed in there. Why is there a king-size bed in there? Because couples. So I can command a higher rent because it's 2 people splitting it.
I love it.
Right? My old house that I rented to the guy 1 bedroom for $1,300 is now renting for $2,800. My mortgage is $1,300.
Okay.
I'm making $1,300 a month.
Beautiful.
On 1 property.
Beautiful.
And it's because it's a young couple. They both have good jobs. They have 2 dogs. We have a fenced-in backyard. We had dogs. I had 3 dogs. We put down carpet to be dog friendly. I had 3 dogs in that house. So who cares if somebody else has dogs?
Right.
Right?
Yep.
The value of that property is that there's a huge fenced-in backyard. It's for dog-friendly couples. $2,800 a month. I'm making $1,300 a month. And you hear these people say cash flow $400 a month, $400 a month, get 17 properties, cash flowing $400 a month. I have 5 properties. I'm making $1,300 on one. The other one I'm making, let's say my mortgage is $1,400. Each is rented for $2,200. I'm making $3,000 a month.
Boom.
One property.
Boom.
So it doesn't have to be this mass scale of a thing. I self-manage. I don't pay anybody to do a poor performance. I created a job for myself that I cannot be fired from, that I could pivot however I need to. That one was doing well as a long-term rental, but guess what? It does better as a midterm rental.
Yeah. Yep.
And because I was able to do learning and following people and how is this person doing it, and you position yourself to align yourself with people that are already doing it better than you, and you learn from them. I'm a physical therapist. Beyond that, I had a marketing degree, and I'm killing it in the real estate space.
Well, you can't really minimize on that because that's huge, and that is playing a massive factor into everything that you've done. Because I think you used the word avatar 27 times. You are thinking of this entire business from a
marketing
scientific perspective. Like you've dissected it down to the smallest point, and that shows.
Right. That's the sales background of. And you guys do this too with the wholesaling, right? Like, who is that person you're buying from and or selling to, right? Yep. And to neglect that in real estate is a mistake.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And it comes back to location, right? So to get into again the experience, I had made so much money on my house and the investment property because the values went bananas. Now, it's not lost on me. I got in at the right time, unknowingly, right? In 2019, 2020. So I learned about how do you make your money make money. Mm-hmm. I cash out refinance both my properties. I still had a 2% interest rate, right? 3% interest rate. Which that was a massive benefit. I'm not ignoring that.
That being said, even if you were paying 10%, you would still be doing okay
cash
on
flowing
these.
More than most people are with a lot more properties. I took that money from HELOCs, a cash out refi ended HELOCs on both my properties, and bought an Airbnb in the Poconos. Okay. It was an equity build. It was a vacant property for 10 years. The guy inherited it from his mom.
You found it on Facebook.
I found it on Facebook. It was, now that's a little bit of an anomaly. It was a wholesale website, right? Facebook group. Somebody had posted it and I did my due diligence, always due diligence, right? Like it's before you can, and it was tough because during that time, that was when houses were just flying off. So you would find something that you're like, this would work really, never mind. Yep. Oh, this is Brent. Nope. It was tough because you're looking for the unicorn, like you said, and the unicorn was fleeting. Yep. So was everybody else, right? So currently is everybody else. And so many people, I was somebody who got into real estate in COVID. So you were also competing with people who had no idea what the hell they were doing. So they were throwing crazy offers at things.
People had a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this house pops up. It's in the Poconos. It is a block from a lake. Okay. Right. So it's not like front, but it's a block from a lake. There's no HOA in the neighborhood. I had known enough at this point from doing I listened to podcasts. My husband was laughing because we drove up from Florida and I was listening to a tax podcast.
I love it.
On the way home from Florida, and he fell asleep because he was like, he's got no interest in any of this, right? Really? He's loving that I'm in heaven and found my passion and my niche and that I'm good at it. And obviously I'm bringing in money, but he zero interest. So he woke up to a tax podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty boring. It's pretty dry.
So boring.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I listen to and everything that it's like, I know that I need to, and that's why I'm listening to it. But this is a really dull topic.
So dull, but at least having that kind of basic understanding. So I knew from podcasts and whatnot, I never wanted to have an Airbnb. That was not, I had zero interest in an Airbnb. It's a lot of work. Doing it remotely. It's in the Poconos. I live 2 hours. I'm in Philadelphia.
Yep.
I was getting into this like midterm, long-term thing, still learning that. And then this opportunity came up again, opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, listen, I'm going to go look at it tomorrow. Right. There was like 70 responses, like interested. And everybody on Facebook's like interested.
Yeah.
You're then
is it still available?
You're then putting the onus on the seller to reach out to you and like chase you down. Like it's not going to happen. So I reached out to the guy. I did my due diligence first, and I reached out to the guy and I said, "Hey, I can come look at this tomorrow. Just going to drive up there tomorrow." And I took my dad with me, which didn't really help. I thought my dad was gonna my dad's an engineer. I thought he was gonna look at shit. He knew nothing. He was like
nice conversation in the car.
Yeah, he prevented me from getting like abducted. It was basically his contribution towards that. But he knows nothing about real estate either, But so it's a property that's been vacant forever. The motivation of the seller, why he was wholesaling it. You and I had a really great conversation about finding that motivation, and that's huge in everything real estate related. He inherited this property from his mom when she died. He tried to rent it out. He had horrible Section 8 tenants that trashed the property. He lived in New York. He had no business being a landlord, essentially. And the property had been vacant for almost 10 years, which in the Poconos is disastrous. They have really bad mold problems and all these issues.
I can imagine.
Horrible. But this property is by a lake. It's in a community that does not have an HOA. HOAs anywhere for rentals, you are at the mercy of the HOA, again, pulling the rug out from underneath you. You have no control over it.
And that's compounded with short-term
rental ordinances. So it's in a short-term friendly township. It's an equity build, right? So it's a wholesaler selling it, which means did my due diligence of what would ARV be after fixing it up, how much work would it potentially need. And it is a mile away from Kalahari Water Park.
Okay.
So if anybody's a skier, it's also 15 minutes from Camelback Mountain, which also has a water park. I'm a skier. I grew up skiing my whole life. Poconos sucks for skiing, right? So everybody thinks, oh, Poconos is great because it's winter year-round skiing, this, that, and the other. We have had horrible winters the past 5 years. I don't know if you ski or snowboard or anything.
Yep, I'm a snowboarder, yeah.
Sucks, right?
Yeah.
It's been awful. Mm-hmm. So people who are buying these properties are thinking, well, it's near a ski resort, and therefore that's going to keep me fed during the winter.
Right.
Nope. I don't buy any properties that won't do well in at least two different areas, two different strategies.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
It has to be either a good long-term rental, a flip. If this doesn't work out, can I flip it?
Yep.
Can I transition to midterm rental? Can I transition to short-term rental? And again, when they say to pick something and get good at it, if all I did was pick stuff that was good at one thing, I'd be screwed. My long-term rental couldn't have become a very successful midterm rental.
Right.
A property that maybe I thought, I currently have a flip that's been on the market now for almost a year. The rates have changed, so now it doesn't make a good long-term rental. It'd be really hard to cash flow that as a long-term rental.
Right.
I can do it. I'm going to have a hard time finding a tenant for it. And it's not, it doesn't fit in my portfolio. It's going to be more of a headache than it would be than to just fire sale it. So that somewhat was a bit of a mistake because that was kind of only a flip, right?
And here you are, you're experiencing the negative of that now.
Exactly. Of not following my own rule, which is this needs to be able to
another exit strategy.
Exactly. Exit strategy. That's exactly what it is. So this property in the Poconos, it makes a killer Airbnb. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So I did not want party house, right? It kind of goes back to like the Section 8 sort of thing, right? There's money in it. Mm-hmm. You can make a ton of money in it, but the headaches that come along with it and the management that you would have to do and the expenses of like, if you needed a hot tub in order to compete, this, that, and the other. Also, kind of like buying the duplex that had tenants. If I buy a 2-bedroom, I can learn better than going balls to the wall. Party house, 7 bedrooms. I went on ski trips.
Right.
I was the kid that rented with a group of friends, trashed a place, not like crazy trash, but like we were idiots, right?
Yeah, of course.
You have no respect. You're 20 something, you're on a ski trip with your friends for the weekend, Yep. Didn't want to deal with it.
Didn't want that.
Kind of came back to, again, the A-, B+ demographic. It's next to a water park. Indoor water park. So who's going to get the rental during the winter? The guy who's next to the ski mountain with no snow? Mm-hmm. Or the property that's family friendly next to an indoor water park and a lake for the summer? So, okay, that's who my avatar is. They're people coming. Who is my customer? They're coming for the water park and they're coming for this lake. Kids. I'm renting towards families with kids. This is also my lake house, right? So for my family.
That was part of it, like in the back of your mind too. It's like, right. I want to be able to, that's my additional value is,
Absolutely. And like, this is fantastic because somebody's going to pay for my mortgage for my lake house. At the time I didn't have any kids. And I think, I don't think even we were married. I think we were just engaged at the time that I bought this house. But it's an equity. If it ends up sucking as an Airbnb or I hate it and I don't want it anymore, we flip it and sell it. There was value. It also cash flowed as a long-term rental because there's no long-term rentals up there. Okay. Everything is a short-term rental.
But are there no long-term rentals just because there's no demand for long-term rentals because there's no jobs?
High demand for long-term.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The problem is there's no jobs.
Okay.
So the income is very low. So where it gets muddled up there, because I've considered like, I should buy some long-term rentals up there. Where it gets muddled is the demographic is not my demographic.
Got it.
They're low income. They don't have job opportunities. There are eviction risks because like it's, you work at McDonald's up there. Like you're getting $15 an hour, maybe, Yep. And you have a family of like 6 looking for like $1,200 a month, right? So there's a lot of damage to the property, this, that, and the others.
Not what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yep.
It did not fit my avatar, right? So while, yes, you could probably make money if that was my avatar, it's not my avatar. So I have to stick with that. What is my avatar is families from New York, especially New York. We get majority New York. They have so much money. They're coming to Kalahari with their kids. They get a lake. You can rent Kalahari. Like if you look at the pricing, they call it enemy method. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
And I do it for all my properties. The enemy method is looking at your competition. Again, kind of like I said before, you look at like who are they targeting and how do you position your property differently for who you're targeting. So I did my enemy method. And I'm looking, and it is, if you pull up Airbnb at any point in time and search anywhere in the country, you'll see pictures, right? Gray, luxury, gray. There's a little warmth. There's a little, mahogany, whatever, There's wood tones, right? Gray. Shitty place, is shitty, right? It's like pictures in the dark, you know?
Yep.
And you're looking and you're like, these are cookie cutter. If you showed me this, I would never pick out any of those. They all look exactly the same, right? This is marketing. They all look the same. I'm targeting families with kids. right? That's who's going to rent my place. Families with kids and couples, because it's a 2-bedroom place. They don't want to rent these like extravagant, they're already paying enough to go to the water park. They don't want to pay for a 6-bedroom house, you know, whatever on top of it. Plus we have this private little lake with the beach. All right, how do I give them an experience? When we rented shore houses when we were kids, this is like a story I tell some people. We rented a house. We used to just rent different houses all the time. We didn't own a shore house. And there was a house, and this was back before Airbnb, you know, when I was a kid and in the 90s, you know, early 2000s. There was a house that had a pool table in it. And there was like no reason this pool table should have been in this house. Like it wasn't a garage. It was like in a room. Like they used up the living room to put a pool table, right? Like
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It doubles as a dining room table.
Yeah. You just put a board on it and just eat. Yeah, so flexibility. We didn't have a pool table growing up, right? So like that was like so cool. And like I'm almost 40, like we still talk about like, remember that house that had that pool table in it? It's just a pool table. It's all it was.
Yeah.
But it was so unique compared to anything else we've been to that I still remember it. And like, I still vividly remember that summer. Like I met this guy at this thing and, you know, like, so I wanted to replicate that. I wanted this house to not only that people would click on it, right? Because you're competing with so many other places that are so cookie cutter.
Yeah.
You want to click on it. Once they're there, they need to be engaged. And I want them to say, remember that house.
I love the way your brain works through this entire thing because like I like reverse engineering everything, right?
Yeah.
And taking the process of human interaction and the experience from them, their first view of the property through actually booking, through going there and creating memories out of it and everything. Like it's...
Yeah. And it's different, right? Because everybody thinks just provide a luxury looking place, right? Like and it's funny because when you listen to these podcasts and you read these, you know, posts in these groups on Facebook, it's like, get professional pictures. I don't have professional pictures. You need a hot tub. I don't have a hot tub. I'm near a lake and a water park. What do I need a hot tub for?
Right.
Like, what? You need this. You need spend more money. In all of my properties, I have thrifted all the furniture from Restore. It's spent maybe another $5,000 furnishing that entire Airbnb from used furniture. Mm-hmm. It's paint color. It's the experience, right? So you go to these like bland gray, you're in the woods in the Poconos, nature, right? Relaxation, like these buzzwords that you think of. Color is huge. People won't rent your place if they're not clicking on your picture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So how are you getting them to click on your picture from the start?
Yeah. So it's branding, right? So the property is called Bigfoot's Nook. Okay. Look it up, rent. You get to plug, I get to plug.
Where? Airbnb, VRBO,
Airbnb.
all of the above?
I'm only on Airbnb.
Okay.
I just haven't needed to go to VRBO because we've been booked so solidly on Airbnb. I don't have a direct booking website. I need to get better at that for sure. I've just been lazy. Life has changed.
If it works, yeah.
Yeah, and we're booked. So look it up, Bigfoot's Nook in Pocono Summit, PA. So it's branded for children. Other thing is, a lot of Airbnbs don't allow kids, or they don't want kids, or it's not kid friendly, right? Leaning into the transient nature of people, leaning into families with kids, leaning into what are other people not doing that this property is good at.
I love it.
Right? So we welcome kids. We want families with kids. We renovated the property to be kid friendly, right? We are not the cheapest because I have a solid 5-star rating after 2 years of operation. I have 5 stars and over 100 renters. 5 stars. I've never gotten anything less than 5 stars. This is my first Airbnb. I've never been in this space at all. Oh, by the way, the midterm renters, also 5 stars. Nobody else even has any reviews, let alone my 5-star reviews.
Nice.
Make your money work for you. Make your money make money, right? So what's different about our house? It's called Bigfoot's Nook. The experience that you're going to remember is not that it's luxury and it looks nice. It's the story. It's Bigfoot's house. And he's Airbnb-ing his house while he's out wandering the woods.
How'd you come up with that?
My husband and I love puns. Like anything that's a pun, that's like a witty, creative, whatever. Comedians that are punny, that kind of stuff, love it. People remember, what's it called? Alliteration, right?
Okay.
So when it's like, Bed Bath and Beyond, right? Like alliteration, things that rhyme, sing-songy, punny type things. Stories.
Everything is stories.
Right. If you can provide a subpar product if there's a good story. People don't sue you unless you're likable, right? People don't sue you if you're likable. They come in and think about renting Airbnbs that you've gone to, right? I took an awesome course in college. It was buyer behavior in marketing. And it's the psychology of sales, right? There's always a psychology of sales. Mm-hmm. People don't sue you if you're likable. Think about going in and you're spending a shit ton of money on an Airbnb. You're going to look for all the flaws in that Airbnb the second you walk in, right? You have a perception of value that the product needs to match that perception of value.
Yep.
If you don't market that value, right? I don't claim anywhere that we're a luxury stay. In fact, we have green walls. They're like, in fact, the pink color was restful. It's called restful. It's like a sage green. The floors are like a oak wood.
Okay.
Right? Nature. It's cream and sage green. Every single person that's walked into our house said, this is so homey and cozy. Right?
I love it.
Your kids feel at home in this.
Yep.
You're not afraid to touch things. When you walk in, my dad's 6'2" and has like size 16 shoes. Like my dad's like huge feet.
So that's where the Bigfoot thing came from. That's it.
No, it just was literally, it was we were kind of like spitballing ideas. One we had was like Knick-Knack Shack. Okay. Again, that kind of play on word.
Yep.
The original thought was like, well, you would have a bunch of just kind of weird knickknacks. Like we love thrifting, right? So like, just weird shit that you're like, what? Like you walked in and was like, what is that? And the thought was it would be interactive, that people could bring a knickknack and like take a knickknack. Like it would be kind of whatever. Then we were like, that'd be a cleaning nightmare,
True.
And like,
True.
What if it'd be expensive. You'd constantly have to, so, we're
keeping inventory,
spitballing ideas. I don't know where the Bigfoot thing came up, but my husband and I were just whatever. And we said, wouldn't it be fun if it was Bigfoot's house? And then of course, now I use ChatGPT. Now like ChatGPT is my like pun generator for everything. But it was like, wouldn't it be fun if it was like Bigfoot's house? That's very playful for kids. And then, of course, Bigfoot's house, Bigfoot's hut, Bigfoot's Nook, Nook kind of sounds similar.
I like it.
Yeah. And we were like, that's kind of a fucking good idea.
Yeah.
Like, he's a mythical creature that so here's then the next step further. So it's Bigfoot's house. There's a fine line between kitschy, right? That's off-putting. Right? You go to a themed house, it's off-putting, right? When everything is like Bigfoot, 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 Bigfoot. Then there's also the other side, like we also are targeting like they're not families, but couples.
Okay.
They're not going to come to like uber Bigfoot, little kitty, whatever, right?
Yep.
even a step further, immersing yourself into the story, if Bigfoot lived here, he wouldn't have Bigfoot everything. This is as I'm planning the design of
That's what I'm saying.
the
Like,
house.
I love the way that your brain goes super in depth to every little detail and everything.
Yeah, and I've since learned, since my early days, I'm an integrator. I'm in operations. I try to get ahead of anything that's going to happen in the future. What do I plan now to get ahead of it?
Well, and as you're kind of going through all this, like one of the takeaways that I'm gathering from it is that you can overcome so much with creativity.
Yes.
You know, it's like you're able to go against the grain on certain things. You're able to make more money on certain things through creativity, not through spending more money, not through grinding harder.
Analyzing what everybody else is doing and not just following that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's figuring out how do you be unique in a sea of boring.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is boring. And who, again, and I know I said the word a million times, who is your avatar?
Absolutely.
Right? Because my avatar, they don't want luxury because they're terrified their kids are going to break something and now they're going to be liable for the payment. Right? Mm-hmm. So what we ended up doing, thought through the process of, okay, if you find a super kitschy place, yes, you have kids, whatever, but then that's going to turn off my other avatar, which is couples. So if this is Bigfoot's house, he's not going to have Bigfoot everything everywhere. We have to make it believable that Bigfoot lives here. So there's subtle hints throughout the house. If you're looking at the picture, and somewhere I made a misstep, was I didn't push the Bigfoot thing enough initially. That was what made us different. And that's what people were going to click on, but I was still kind of hanging on to this, like, still make the pictures, make it look like it's a livable, nice, comfortable house. But then it blended in. And when you looked at Airbnb, it was gray, green, warm.
Gotcha.
Warm tones.
So basically, like your cover photo, your thumbnail was out. Just like so different than everything else.
Okay. It was the fireplace with a warm chair, and the chair had staging is everything. Okay. Right.
So like Airbnb, they allow you to, because like for the MLS, for example, it's like the cover photo has to be a photo of the exterior of the house. Airbnb, you can kind of do whatever you want.
It doesn't have to be. And guess what? Guess how my flip is marketed it? Because everything on the MLS is exterior. Put the kitchen.
Yeah.
Who is your buyer? What's the main thing they're looking for? If it's a family, kitchen. Put the kitchen.
I'm pretty sure Bright MLS specifically does specify that. I'm gonna have to fact check
I can pull up my flip right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? Guess what? Top 5 photos.
Yeah.
It's the same on Airbnb.
Okay.
You have, if you think of the MLS, if you pull up Zillow, let's say you pull up Zillow, you have the front picture, which is the biggest picture. Then you have 4 pictures over here, right? Let's flip flop for camera, right? But you have they call it your hero photo, is the major photo. 4 pictures over here. Why would you not put the hero photo of the best thing about that property that's going to sell it, right? Because when you're looking at it and there's a beautiful kitchen, exterior, who cares about the exterior of the property? Who cares? Right. That's not selling it. You have this beautiful kitchen, boring living room, right?
Yep.
Living room with nothing special, right? You're going to click on that kitchen because, wow, God, look at that kitchen. Oh, I would die to have that kitchen. You're selling towards women.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
Not to say that women are kitchens or whatever, but like you're selling that experience to what that buyer wants. So why not have a top 4 like you do on Airbnb on Zillow?
Yeah.
So I went to my realtor and I said, no, we're changing these pictures for my flip. And I rotate them every month. I rotate that head picture every month.
What do you think went wrong in the flip then?
The market.
Yeah.
It's 8% interest rates. They're now 7%. It's a $500,000 flip.
Okay.
The people that are coming, we're getting amazing feedback. We're getting traffic. We're getting 2-3 showings a week. They're not targeting the avatar for the flip. They're targeting new buyers that are just...
Well, that's because that's all that there is.
That's all there is. It's people shopping, right? If I were the realtor, which I probably should be, I should probably do this myself. Like, the problem is every time I do something, I'm like, I should just do this myself. Mm-hmm. But I don't have bandwidth to do it myself. They should be targeting people coming from New York, right? This is a value. This house is killer for people coming from New York. It's beautiful. It's big. It's in a great location. It's got everything. People from New York coming down. People from China immigrating over. People who can afford a $500,000 house, not me and my husband who are buying our house for our first time. Oh, by the way, we also need subsidy grants to do it.
Right.
And that's who they're bringing through, right? So it's like they're putting up, their marketing isn't good, right? And I never realized this. No offense, realtors. What the hell does a listing agent do? They put it on Zillow. They don't even show the property. Mm-hmm. This is the first house I'm selling. That blew me away because
that's most of it. There's some that do more, but I would probably make the argument that 95% of them, that's all they're doing. And but now, so here's the other side of that is still 95% of the time that works because market, people are on there. They have their apps on their phones. They're browsing
my listing on Zillow and they come to me.
It's exactly right.
And I probably should have done the what do they call it, fixed fee listing, where you don't even use but I didn't know. And when you look back at it, they're not even doing the showings.
Yeah. Yep.
How backwards is this? Mm-hmm. I'm, as somebody who does my own showings for my own properties and tells this story, the thought that I put into this house, so the flip that I have up, it's in South Philadelphia. It was a hoarder house. I told you I was going to go through some numbers here, but it was a hoarder house, found on Facebook.
There you go.
Once again, every single one of my properties is Facebook. Spent no money finding these properties. Somebody had posted in a women's investor group that they had a friend who was in a tough situation. Her mom was a hoarder, and the mom is in a skilled nursing facility, which I'm a physical therapist who knows and understands that side of things. Knowing your buyer, or your seller, what's their motivation. She's in a tough situation. The mom cannot go home from the skilled nursing facility. It's a hoarded house. She doesn't know what to do. I'm a physical therapist. I was the only one that reached out to this lady and said, and I had just bought the Airbnb. So I was really not in any position to get my next deal, right? But opportunity, if you don't follow opportunity, you can miss out. So I messaged her and I said, hey, listen, I would love to connect with your friend. I'm a physical therapist. I just want to chat. I just want to see what you do. This is what you're so good at in wholesaling, right? It's learning what's their motivation. How can you help them out of this situation? Mm-hmm. So I set up a Zoom call with this lady and got her story. And she grew up in this house that was hoarded her whole life. She had a horrible relationship with her mother because she blamed her for growing up in this house. She's been estranged from her mom for 12 years. She's now in this dichotomy of she has to take care of her mom while having a bad relationship with her mom, handle all the mom's assets and poor financial decisions. She's overwhelmed. And I told her, listen, I'm a geriatric physical therapist. I understand skilled nursing facilities. She won't be released back home. You're going to have to find alternative care for her. She's on Medicaid, which means that any sale of the asset, and I know this, my business brain, any sale of the asset is going towards the government to pay back mm-hmm. for the Medicaid expenses. Mm-hmm. So the daughter can sell this for whatever. She doesn't care. She's not seeing a penny of the benefits, the proceeds. So all you have to do, of course, went in, did my due diligence, figured out legally, how do I do this? All you have to do is prove you can't buy it for $1, right? So all Medicare cares for is that you can prove that you're buying it for market value. Well, this house is so hoarded. Market value is nothing. So I ended up paying $36,000 for this house in South Philadelphia.
I love it.
Put in about $250 of work, intention to flip it. Didn't have to do any hard money. After my parents saw how good I was at what I'm doing, they were my private lenders.
Okay.
So it was just a 10% interest on top of the total.
Okay.
Once I sold what they lent me plus 10%, they make 10% off of it. There's multiple exit strategies. So like, can't go wrong with it. They know I'm competent. I know. I can sell. I can fire sell. The beauty is, I know. Listen.
Hey, I've fucked up. I've lost money on things. It is what it is.
Part of the reason it's still in the market is because I don't need to sell it.
Yeah, but so that's the thing. That's one of the things that's actually hurting you on this, right? Mm-hmm. So outside perspective, looking in and everything, and putting myself in your shoes. Like, I know for me, for one, it's rare that I actually have cash available to do projects anyway. It's like it gets dispersed into everything all the time, right? Like a real estate investor never has any freaking money. It's just how it works. But when I have in the past and I've put all of my money into a project, I know I have zero fucking urgency.
Right.
None.
Right.
None. Because I'm like, it's not costing me anything.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I'm not paying interest.
Right.
I don't have a mortgage.
Right.
It's whatever.
Right.
And then stuff sits. It never gets done.
Right.
The last property that I lost money on, it's because I had a very, very, very tiny mortgage on it. Most of it was my own cash into it. I let it sit for like 15 months and did nothing because I got busy. I was doing other things, right? I don't need to.
And that is it makes totally
it so much more like I gotta do something. I gotta get something done.
Right.
When you have a 12% interest rate and you're making that payment every single freaking month.
And that's the only reason I'm not urgencying because you're exactly right.
I get it, but you're mentally fucking yourself into being like, oh, well, it's okay because I'm not desperate. I'm not motivated. Right. My 2 cents
could
is
be real quick. Yeah.
You are, and you should push and you should get that thing sold.
And in my defense, I let it go, did like a small price drop, and I was hitting for the fence, right?
Yep.
Swinging for the fence. Because I have no carrying cost. I have no mortgage. I have no loan. I have nothing other than the taxes on it, which are kind of minimal at this point. The utilities are shut off. I don't even, I'm paying electric and gas. Water's not running. And I also, to be fair, part of it too, I had a really incompetent realtor. The first realtor that I went with was awful.
Yeah.
And I was locked into a contract with him. Talk about doing nothing. Like when I realized, like, what do listing agents do? Because he wasn't doing showings. The buyer's agent does the showing. The buyer, explain this to me. The buyer's agent that knows nothing about this property is selling the property.
It's a world of real estate.
That's
how it works.
It's bananas in my brain.
Get out of here with your analytical brain and everything. This is just the way it freaking works, all right? This is the way it works.
There were so many intentional things that I did because it was a full gut. There was my Bigfoot property. I did the electrical so that I reorganized. This is another thing that's something that you think about if you really want to get successful in real estate and make a shit ton of money with not owning that many properties. How are they using the property, right? Does the property make sense? So in Bigfoot, there was, it was a vacant property. There is one house across the street in the front. The two sides are just land. So this one's like the backyard for that neighbor. And this one, it actually is a home for intellectually disabled people. So a company owns the house next to me, and they have a huge yard that's undeveloped. It's just trees. The house across from me, the whole backyard is just trees. They own that whole property. So I am kind of secluded, which is valuable for an Airbnb. And it won't be developed. That land won't ever be developed because that guy owns that land, this guy owns this land, and this guy owns this land. Behind me are 3 houses. Right, so neighbor directly behind me, neighbor to the right. Well, you typically put a backyard hangout spot in the backyard, right? it's an Airbnb. I'm going to piss off my neighbors if people are hanging out late in the backyard. Makes more sense to put the backyard in the front yard.
Okay.
Right? There's one house versus 3. Don't piss off your neighbors when people don't sue people they like.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I got the opportunity to buy my neighbor's house.
Okay.
Because I'm friends with my neighbors.
Yeah.
I know who my neighbors are. They love me.
It matters.
We're not renting a party house. We're renting a house with families. They see me there mowing the lawn. I painted a Bigfoot mural on the chimney outside. I did it myself. So they see me invested in the property. They have my phone number. They don't sue people they don't like.
Yep.
Or they don't sue people they like. How does this house make sense? So we put the backyard in the front yard, right? Because there's less houses. So if people are outside, it's not going to bother anybody. There is a front door, which is now the back door.
Okay.
Theoretically, right? Like, because the front yard is the hangout spot. Which, oh, by the way, there's also a grill out there. So the kitchen, if you had put something in the backyard, you'd have to go out the house and around if you were grilling or whatever.
That makes sense.
So now the grill's out front, kitchen, grill. Now the side door is the front door. The side door leads into a laundry room, right? And when you walk into an Airbnb, you want the most best, coolest thing you see, right? You walk into a washer and dryer in my Airbnb. But there's a lake. You're coming back from the water park, coming back from hiking.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to have a drop zone in a mud room is huge.
Yeah,
right?
That makes a lot of sense.
When we were renovating it, now the front door is the laundry room, but the electrical didn't make sense when you walk through the house, right? You would have to walk through a room to turn the light on because the house was wired that the front door is in the front.
Sure.
We rewired it. So now, no matter which way you walk through the house, lights turn on whichever direction you're going.
Got it.
The Full Gut Rehab. It's on Snyder Ave, which is crazy loud. You know, you got people on dirt bikes and four-wheelers, right? That's the biggest complaint for Snyder Ave is four-wheelers. So we put the master bedroom in the back of the house. We planned it. I planned it. I keep saying we, like my husband did anything. He didn't do any of this. Put the master bedroom in the back, even though the front probably made a better master bedroom from appearances. Put the master bedroom in the back. So now it's so quiet back there. You cannot hear street noise at all. But a listing agent isn't selling that to the person that's in there. Unless you point that out to somebody, they're not going to make that connection. Right. It was an intentional design. There's a walk-in closet in the back. There's not so many windows back there, but people put blackout curtains. You don't even really need a window in your bedroom, right? Mm-hmm. You try to minimize the windows in your bedroom. That was an intentional design plan. But my agent's not selling that. The buyer's agent doesn't know how to sell that. So there's so much of that experience that is now missed.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because like I like to go back to the thought of Ford, right? And that statement, that phrase, like if I asked customers at the time what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right?
Yeah,
so it's like
right.
That there's so I think about it all the time from a product standpoint now with my software, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
There's so much that it's like, oh my God, how do I get this message to you? It's like, yes. I have this refined, like, yes, this was purposefully built to do this. Yeah. And I want to explain and demonstrate this value to you.
Right.
But so much of like the customer journey is not explained through somebody guiding them through it. It has to be intuitive and they have to be able to figure that out on their own.
Yes.
And if they can't, the bedroom being in the back as opposed to the front, it doesn't matter. Like,
it doesn't matter.
Even if you put that in the listing description, it's like they have to be able to connect the dots on their own.
Absolutely.
And it's a frustrating thing when it comes to a marketing mindset and everything. It's like, well, I built and designed this with this intention in mind, but how do I actually get you to? It's hard.
So what I do to get over that, it's somewhat hard. I would be curious to like kind of work through with your software and figure out what could you do. But But what I learned with the Airbnb, and I put this into the flip as well, because if I could just show the damn flip myself, I could sell these things because I know this stuff. Like, I even put the bathroom intuitively should be this way, vertically. I turned it horizontally to create a wall that you could put a TV on, because the layout of the room in these Philly row homes, they weren't built for TVs. TVs didn't exist when they were built.
Yep.
So the layouts suck when you think about the furniture, and like we put a fireplace in there, an electric fireplace. In your brain, you would naturally think it would go above the fireplace, but then your couch would be right underneath it and you're cranking your neck. I intentionally built the bathroom in a wonky way to give you an extra wall for the TV to go. We got feedback on one of the showings, not sure where the TV would go. And it was like, if I was selling it, you would put the TV, this is how, So the way I get around that in the Airbnb, because for me, how do I give people the best experience with me doing the least amount of work, right? That's
a big piece.
Work smarter, not harder, right? How do you have an intention and get somebody else to acknowledge that intention intuitively? Signs. So most people give you, when you run an Airbnb, you get like a digital guest book. I don't even have that, right? Everybody, you have to have a digital guest book. It has to have this. I don't even have it. With all the house rules, who the fuck is reading that? I never have read these house rules. I'm on vacation. I'm not reading a freaking like how-to guide, right? Yep.
And if you do, you're probably just going to get pissed off anyway.
Yeah, like these people telling me how to live, right? And it's interesting because I got really busy at one point where I had a full-time job and I was doing the midterm rentals. I was getting the Airbnb up and running. I was managing the reno because, by the way, I also manage my own renovations. I was managing the renovation. I was living my own life, right? I hired an assistant to help me kind of just, can you set up, call these contractors, get pricing for me and set up these appointments, whatever. I now can't afford an assistant, but I'm also up and running and everything's like so automatically and streamlined. In the Airbnb, she was a stand-up comedian. She's got a really cool story. Kirsten Sills, if you want to look her up. She's great. She has cystic fibrosis. And is a stand-up comedian, and she was looking for kind of like remote work while she was in the hospital with cystic fibrosis. I have a cousin who passed away, unfortunately, from cystic fibrosis. So it kind of hit home, and we just clicked, and she's a stand-up comedian, so she was freaking hilarious. So it was great to work with her. And I needed help. She was super competent, but her stand-up is hilarious. Excuse me. I have visuals. Everything is visual, right? In marketing, you have 3 seconds to look at something and make a decision on it, right? You get somebody's attention for 3 seconds. And that goes back to that lead photo on the MLS. You have 3 seconds for them to look at a snapshot and pick your picture, right? Same with Airbnb. Going back to your question about Airbnb, I got a 5-foot Bigfoot statue that's carved out of a tree.
I love it.
Right? And he's holding a sign that says, "Welcome to Bigfoot's Nook." My profile picture on Airbnb is Bigfoot's statue.
Hell yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Even if you're like, what the fuck is that? Yep. You're going to click.
Exactly.
So once you click.
To your point of 3 seconds, I would argue it's probably a lot
way
shorter
less. You are
way shorter.
Snapshot of that page.
Yeah.
Right? So when you see house, living room, Bigfoot, you're clicking on me every time.
Yep.
And when you look at your analytics, because that's the other thing, you have to look at your analytics. I change that picture frequently. I look at my analytics and I say what picture it was clicked on.
Yep.
I do my own marketing analysis. In fact, with my duplex currently, because they're now both furnished rentals, the downstairs has very nice LVP flooring. The upstairs is carpeted because it's upstairs, right? The click conversion rate is like 500 to the downstairs to like 45 upstairs. Wouldn't you want the upstairs apartment? It's in a duplex. You don't hear your neighbors, this, that, and the other. But visually, the downstairs, I have more colorful pictures because I did it second. I furnished it second. So I learned, put a big colorful rug, right? Your attention goes directly to that colorful, dynamic looking rug. There's a huge picture of the Manayunk Bridge, but it's like bright green. Like it's like colorful. Mm-hmm. Whereas the one upstairs, I didn't have that foresight.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So now I'm looking into, my tenant just moved out. The problem is we've been booked. I booked consistently. So like my tenant just moved out last week upstairs and I have a showing on Friday.
Okay.
So like it's that quick.
That's good.
The downstairs, she's renewed 3 times. She was only supposed to be here for 3 months. She's going to be there for 9.
Okay.
So the problem is like I can't get in there to renovate upstairs to like pull up that carpet because downstairs is rented and I have somebody interested and it's renting. It's not renting. It's just not showing as well. Mm-hmm. There was a point to all this and I can't remember where it was. Oh, with the pictures. So how do you get people to be intuitive to follow your rules? Pictures. People are visual. You have 3 seconds. If you have to sit and read something, your attention span is like out the window.
Yep, it's not happening.
How do you make it fun, right? It's kitschy. So I have signs. I have Bigfoot. I'm proficient in Photoshop, right? I am a Jane of all trades. Like if I need to learn something, I will figure it out and like get it done. And that's come from needing to do that, from getting let go and like, all right, my dad's an engineer, right? He taught me when I was young, here's a problem, how do we solve it?
Right.
There's 17 ways to solve this problem.
I relate to that. Yep.
Right? And that really, I think, helped me being like in all this. So in Airbnb, how do I avoid people bothering me? How do I not have to answer any questions, right? I want my dream guest is you rent my property and I never hear from you. Yeah. And then you give me a 5-star review. Yeah. Like that is my
perfect world. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect dream.
That's what you are solving for.
Exactly. Same with the midterm rental. You rent my property, you continue to renew, and I never hear from you. Yep. Ever. So it's signs. And instead of having a book, I literally have a sign that I photoshopped, and it's a picture of Bigfoot like going like this, and it says, again, puns, sush squash instead of Sasquatch, sush squash hours, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., right? It's the quiet time hours. It's on the door. So when you're going out into the front yard, your quiet time hours are 10 to 8 a.m.
Yep.
Guess what? They're not going to read that in the book, but there's a cute sign with a cartoon Bigfoot who's going like this, and there's a fun pun that they go, what is that? Can we use the lake? Well, there's a sign on the door leading out towards the lake that says, just walk around the fence. Guess what? That was a question I got asked repeatedly because I didn't have proper signage. It wasn't intuitive to your...
Well, and that's always the thing. It's being able to pay attention to the signals, to the questions, to everything that's happening. Right. So you can see where those friction points are.
Where are those
inefficiencies? Then fix for that.
How do I get ahead of this? Right. Yep. So I even was joking with my husband and I was like, I haven't heard from a tenant. I didn't even know one guy like lived at my property. That can be a bad
thing though, right? Right. When you're not getting any signals, you're not getting any echoes or whatever.
Right.
It's like,
and in my brain, I panic, right? Because I'm like, is this guy dead? Yeah. Right? But then when you do get that feedback and they were like, this was awesome. This was like the best. You thought of everything. Like one guy, honestly, I didn't even know if he moved in. Like it's so automated now. He paid his rent because the midterm rentals, I have a software that I use. It's a property management software. It's called Tenant Cloud. It's amazing. I did all my background screen. I did whatever. And I have my systems that they have to pay X amount of money for the midterm rentals. They pay a holding deposit, which basically like this guy that I'm going to meet on Friday, I kind of walk through my process with him. Showing him this property on Friday. Let's say he wants it. All right, he's got to apply. And Tenant Cloud has like a screening thing that you can send. And it'll be like, why are you coming to Philadelphia? Do you make X amount of money? What's your credit score? Why are you living with anybody else? Do you have a pet? Like it's full screen. He can upload his ID to this. He can upload his income statements so I can see pay stubs. Because it's midterm, I don't really care too much about the pay stubs. I care a little bit more like if you can show me a bank statement that for 3 months
you have enough money,
the assets to pay for it. Because we get a lot of like students that don't have jobs.
Gotcha.
But they have assets that they can pay for this 3 month. So let's say he qualifies, do a background screen. I only really care about criminal, just because it's a duplex. So I care about the safety of my other tenant.
For sure.
Again, it's me caring about my tenants. So let's say he wants it. He passes the background screen. Okay, well, because it's first come, first served, you have to put down a hold deposit to reserve your dates, right? So this guy doesn't want to move in until May 15th.
Okay.
Or no, sorry, May 1st, right? So it's currently April, 15th?
15th.
Oh, God, today's tax day.
Tax day, yeah.
God, is this bad luck or I don't know. No, my taxes have been done for weeks. Yeah. Already getting my refund. Which is another thing for people who aren't in real estate, tax refunds. Amazing. Getting like $15,000 back this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I just pay money.
Yeah, but you also are like the scale that you're at. Don't give the government a free loan. Listen, I'd rather pay money.
Pros and cons.
Yeah. So he would put down a hold deposit, which would basically reserve those dates, right? Because if I might get somebody that wants to move in tomorrow, and that's happened, where they're like, I need a place. I always panic because I'm a planner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if I was booking a place, I would have it booked 2 months in advance.
Well, to me, I mean, I guess it's different for the midterm stuff because if somebody tells me that they want to move in tomorrow, they want to move in Friday, they want to move in Monday, I'm like, whoa,
red flags. Like,
no good, no bueno. You're stiffing your previous landlord. Something's going on.
Nobody else is renting to you.
Yeah.
And it's such a mind shift. Same with short-term rental, right? Like our lead time is only 3 days. And my brain is like, you're planning a vacation 3 days in advance, but it's the demographic. Hey, let's go to the Poconos this weekend.
Yeah.
Right? We're not this big ass house that like you planned months in advance. You're coming from New York, you're coming from Philly, you're coming from Jersey. Yo, let's go to the Poconos this weekend.
Right.
So it's really taking, like, I have my anxiety of like even right now, this guy literally just moved out last week. He's been there for 6 months. He just moved out last week. And I'm like, I don't have a renter. Like, and I'm marketing it and this, that, and the other. But people have things where they're like, I need to move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. This guy is seeing it Friday and he wants to move in 2 weeks. Right. But he's a traveling healthcare professional. So he's got a job. He's currently here. He's working. And I don't know his full story yet, but he's working and he probably just needs better accommodation or accommodation that lasts longer, whatever. So it's like a hotel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, in a way.
And I've had nothing but amazing, amazing tenants that have been fantastic. They leave it like immaculate.
So do you foresee more midterm rental acquisitions in your future?
To your point with the flip of when, you're going to have to. The other problem with the flip was timing a little bit. I didn't put it on the market until like July or August. So you're also I missed the selling season into winter, which gets a little tricky.
I hate that. That's bullshit.
Listen, I can
selling
justify
season
this.
is year round.
I can justify this. I can explain myself out of this paper bag.
But see, that's your problem. That's what you're doing. You're explaining. Don't be explaining. The market's talking to you.
I'm very good at evaluating situations and like where problems are and correcting them, right? So first problem, the timing was not the best it could be, right? Selling in Philadelphia particularly, you're not selling this property to families because their school district sucks, right?
Yep.
So you're kind of looking at first-time home buyers, couples, looking, or a couple that's like wants to upgrade to like something nicer, right? So the timing for the school district doesn't really matter because, you know, most couples that don't have kids aren't thinking about that really.
Right.
Like, the school district's horrible. So July, August, like, people in Philly, June, July are like the months to rent, to sell a house, anything. That's when you get your best shot at a tenant. So we missed that. Come wintertime, we had showings, this, that, and the other. My realtor, awful. And it was the first time selling a house, so I didn't quite know, but it was like when the NAR changes were happening. He kept telling me, like, I was asking, like, hey, can we update the pictures? No, we can't, because the NAR is screwing up the MLS. Okay, but everybody else is not having a problem. I don't understand why. What do you mean? Like,
that doesn't make any sense.
That shouldn't have happened. I'm not a realtor and I've never used the MLS, but that doesn't sound right.
No.
We had first open house. I had to message him like a week later, like, hey, how did it go? Who came through? Like, it was a lot of, he sucked. He targeted people who needed like grant money to afford houses. This is a $500,000 house. So you're targeting people that need like assistance.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just a lot of missteps. For 6 months, I was locked in this contract. So part of it was struggling with that. It was over winter. Finally got a new realtor. He's so much better. Like, it's like breath of fresh air. I later found out the realtor that I was using is like not even really in that neighborhood that much, where this guy's like a South Philly guy. Like, all he does is South Philly. Like, that's his jam, you know, and Philly's so tricky because it's so neighborhood. It
is. And make no mistake about it. Like, Philly,
it's a tough market.
Yeah. In the last year, 18 months, a lot of shit has changed, you know, and stuff is sitting.
Yeah.
And it's just not just on the landlord side with, you know, people kind of running because the evictions aren't happening and all that stuff.
Right.
It's like, it's being hit from multiple different angles and everything.
Yeah.
And like, there's some stuff going on politically and people don't want to move there like they did, you know?
And
it's like
we were talking about it before, even too, like, a recession's looming now, right? So you've got, like, my husband was just let go from his job, which we thought was a pretty secure job. He's in IT. So there's fear, right? Like, nobody wants to go buy a house right now if they think they're going to lose their jobs. So we're getting to a point where, because it's now rental season, right? So I have basically May, June, July to find a renter for this property. So I'm at the point now where I basically told my realtor, kind of fire sale it. And you had asked a question about, am I looking at more midterm rentals? So I'm considering doing a 1031 exchange. I found a property. It's another one bedroom in Roxborough.
Okay.
That's been on the market 67 days. It does not make a good long-term rental for the price they're trying to sell it for. So now there's a little bit of incentive that if I can fire sale it, right, and 1031 exchange it, the money difference of the tax savings is worth it to lose in
That's the
the
thing.
exchange.
There's different ways to look at it, right?
Exactly.
So the story that I was sharing with you, the same thing I did, you know, I had my money into it. The decision that I ultimately ended up making was I ended up choosing to sell at a $30,000 loss.
Wow.
Where the other side was I could still finish that project and I'll still probably make $100,000.
Nice.
But it's probably going to be a year and a half long project.
Right.
Very, very time consuming from me. I would have to be involved in the project. It was going to be a big, heavy rehab and everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you simply look at it from a financial perspective, make 100,000, lose 30,000. It's like, it's a clear decision.
Yeah, right.
But when you start factoring in the time value of, you know, like my mental clarity and being able to put my effort and energy into something else and my main core focus and my main business and everything, it's a no-brainer. It's like, I'm actually making more money by losing 30 grand on the sale of the asset.
I saw your video on that. And that's always like, we learned in college, you know, the opportunity cost. Right. So It's another thing that people don't necessarily see all the time, that I'm always looking for opportunity, but I'm also looking at what is the cost of making whatever decision.
Well, it's really hard to quantify it sometimes.
Right. Well, because it's abstract, right? So like it's potential, right? So in this case, the two deals that I'm in between, and I was telling you about this before, like the property in South Philly, I now live, 45 minutes north. I'm closer to like Lehigh Valley now. So to get into the city sucks. Like it's an awful drive. I can get home from the Poconos faster than I can get from my house to the city. Like
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And my husband's like, F this. Like we always joke, so I live in Harleysville now, and it's, kind of, it's suburban, but it's a little more rural. And we always joke that we're like taking our trip to the city today, like to go from living in the city to like now where we are, that I literally plan like this showing that I have on Friday. Like I'm going to go to my property in South Philly too, to check in on it, because I'm taking my day trip to the city.
I totally understand.
You got to plan it. While this other property he's asking way too much money for it. The property does not make sense as a long-term rental for what he's asking for it. But again, it's doing this. I always joke, like, I can find out what your kids do for a living. It's finding these things on Facebook. The funny ones are when you join these neighborhood groups and somebody posts, my landlord's selling, I don't know what to do. You find their property. I want to start selling some stuff to you, because I've got so many leads that, like, if I could get like referrals,
sell them to me. Let's go.
Like have you approach them or whatever. I'll find them for you, but
sweet,
you can close on them.
Send them our way.
And it's fun for me to like kind of do this due diligence. So even our own house that we just bought last year, I know what the kids' college majors were.
Yeah.
I know what school. Turns out one of the daughters went to college where I got my physical therapy degree. So when we were negotiating with the sellers, I casually mentioned I went to Arcadia. That kind of similar. People like people that they like.
Absolutely.
So I find these people that are complaining about their house being whatever, or I searched and my landlord doesn't have a rental license. Right? So now these are landlords that like don't give a shit. They are going to be in trouble if this tenant complains. Maybe that person's interested in selling. Yeah. Right? So I did due diligence. I found this property on the MLS. It's been sitting 67 days. Turnkey. It's fully renovated. So that's awesome, because I have a 7-month-old. We're trying to get pregnant again for our second. So in my current situation, I'm not down for another renovation, right? I'm kind of in management mode now. I was in acquisition mode. Now I'm in, let's take a breather, But I need to get this property sold. And I basically told my realtor, you have until June to sell it. Otherwise, I'm cash out refinancing it and keeping it as a rental. It doesn't make a good rental. I'm also a little, I don't want to say like jaded, but I'm making so much on my other rentals.
I get it. And
that even if it cash flows,
though, too.
If it cash flows 400, to me, that's a failure, right? Because my other ones are 1,000 plus cash flow. So to me, it's like, it doesn't make a good rental, but it kind of does. But one CapEx, what's 400 a month going to do, right? So I'm struggling internally with my own judgment of what's a good return.
Yeah, because it all comes down to what you ultimately want, and it seems like what you're doing with all of the other rental properties and everything, you've reverse engineered for the desired outcome that you wanted. Right. And with this, you would kind of be compromising and saying, oh, well, okay, I'll just deal with that.
I'll take the second best kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
And, it's also that, I wanted to make as much money as I can make. And I'm coming to terms with like, if I don't make $130,000 on this deal, if I just make 100, that's fine. Because that's more money I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
That's more money than I've even gotten working as a physical therapist on one deal. Like that is killer. Mm-hmm. So I'm starting to get to your point, getting to that point where I'm like, all right, I know what the timing is here. Mm-hmm. And because that would need to rent, and I have a 10-year tax abatement on it, like, it's a deal for whoever recognizes it's a deal, basically.
Yep.
I have a 10-year tax abatement on it, but I would still need like upwards of $2,800 to $3,000 at the current rates. I don't have a job, so I'd have to get a DSCR loan on it, right? So my rates are going to be 7.5, right? So, and if I took the full equity at 4, the ARV is 450. Properties have sold around it at 450.
Okay.
Exact comps. So I'm not like crazy pricing it the way I am. So, that mortgage is $2,600 plus. So I'd have to rent it for $28,000 to $3,000 a month.
Yep.
Right. So again, but it's me marketing it. So I already have 2 potential renters at $3,000 a month for this property in South Philly. It's the avatar.
Don't do it.
I know.
That's my 2 cents here. That's my 2 cents. Don't do it.
It's a desperation move, right? And see, and that's where in my brain it's like part of the reason I've held on to it is it's not because I had opportunity, because nobody was interested, but it was like you said, you get comfortable. I'm not losing money on this. I'm losing a couple $100 a year on it, right? Like I don't have any debt. I have debt to my parents, which like the guilt of I owe my parents money. But at the end of the day, I still have that B option of cash out refinancing it and keeping it as a rental. I don't want it as a rental.
Yeah.
It doesn't cash flow very well. It's way out of all my other portfolio is in Manioc, Roxborough, plus Poconos.
Yeah, it's not your area of focus.
Yeah. And, like I said.
If you can make money on it still and get out, like you're talking the difference between making 130 and making 100, I'd be like, my perspective. I lost money to get out of one, so.
Right. And so I this week actually kind of said to my realtor, okay, fire sale, let's get rid of it because I don't want to have to rent it. And you're coming down. And it's funny because he even said, he's like, well, I don't want to sound desperate. I'm like, we are desperate.
Right.
What do you mean you don't want to sound desperate?
And that's the thing. It's like over time, right? Like at first you get a lowball offer and it's like, not only from a financial perspective do I not want to do that, but it's like it's a kick in the ego.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, man, I put so much effort into this. I purposefully designed and built and I put my heart and soul into this. And you're saying that's not worth anything. Yeah. But a lot of times the market doesn't give a fuck.
Absolutely.
It doesn't care about you. And it doesn't care about your property.
Big lesson that the flip taught me. Because the intention, and again, I think it's tricky because again, if it was sold to the buyers with those things, might have changed some of the buyers, because some of the feedback we were getting, like one of the feedback, there's really tall ceilings, and this is like unique property. It's very wide. It's wider than normal, and super tall ceilings. Problem is perspective. When you walk in, a super tall ceiling makes the room look smaller. Right? So like visually, the other realtor didn't put any architectural drawings. He didn't do a Matterport. He didn't do, like, there's all these things in my brain that I'm like, you need to show them. These are bigger, they're king size beds fit in every single room. Find me another house in South Philly that a king size bed fits in every room.
Right.
In a 3-bedroom house. And a lot of feedback we were getting is the bedrooms are too small. What? A king-size bed, but it wasn't staged with king-size beds in there. So perceptually, when you walk in, you see a room that looks small. I'll say they look small because the ceilings are so high. Pulls the walls in visually. They're 11 by 15 rooms. But if you don't intuitively have somebody be able to know that, so I put signs up. I first of all staged it myself because the staging cost, oh my God, there's another thing.
Yeah. I've never staged anything.
It makes a huge difference. Coming from the furnished rental side of things, it does, especially in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Where you don't see it's hard to see the layout of a room unless there's visual. And in this case, the king size beds fit in these bedrooms with like space to spare.
Yeah.
But if you don't see it, you can't visualize. So I spent, when we first put it up with the pictures, and I'll show you all these pictures. I'll show you all my properties. And I'm sorry, I know I'm talking a ton.
You're good.
I spent $2,500, I think, staging it.
Okay.
Right. And they did okay. Like, it was nice furniture, but it was very bland, very neutral, which is tricky, right? When you're furnishing something, that's like a whole other conversation, but you're targeting your avatar, but you also need to not turn anybody off, right? So like one of the big things doing these renovations, you'll see some of these houses, they made these crazy design choices, like a bold backsplash and that's kind of where the Airbnb thing goes too, right? They do these like neutral, boring places because it appeals to the most people.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
In a flip, sure, that makes sense, right? But there's something special about character in everything, right? So in a South Philly row home, right? You go back to your roots of South Philly. I'm Italian, right? So like we're a little gaudy, right? Like, so when you think of South Philly, right? They're a little artsy. They're a little like eclectic. They kind of like those like character things. So like even making the decision, there's a vestibule that is iconically South Philadelphia is a vestibule, right? So it's like understanding your market. We purposely left in the vestibule with the original tile. It's ugly as sin. It's gaudy as fuck, this tile. But you go, wow, when you see it, right? Because it's like iconically South Philadelphia. We left the transom in. Okay. That's like the original South Philly, right?
Yep.
Because there's something about character. It's a flip. It looks brand new. But like we in the bathroom, when we tore out the walls and you saw the layers of, it's a 100-year-old house. You see layers and layers and layers of wallpaper. I found the original wallpaper in the house on Etsy.
Really?
Yeah. And that's hanging in the bathroom.
Okay.
Right? So it's
just like in a picture frame or something.
Removable. It's ugly as sin, right? But again, that's a story that if I was showing the property, that's the original wallpaper. That was blah, 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 right? And it gets lost in the flip. But
sometimes, it's like intuitively what you think, even when you purposefully design something, is not how it translates. So I'm going the opposite direction right now. I stopped putting fucking refrigerators in my flips because I had a bunch of people that told me, one of my buddies, he's like, I flipped 500 houses. Yeah. I haven't put a refrigerator in the last 495 of them, and they sell. Yeah. When he said that, and it's like, dude, he saved $750,000 by not putting a refrigerator. Yeah. And to me, I've always done it because it's just like, a house needs a refrigerator and everything. That's just what matters.
It depends on your avatar, right?
No, it doesn't. I just sold my first $500,000 house with no refrigerator.
No, you're proving my point. And here's why. So a refrigerator is a very personal thing, right? So we got rid of the refrigerator for the house we bought. We bought our own refrigerator. When you're selling a $500,000 house, on the wealthier side, they don't want your shitty refrigerator you put in. They're going to just get rid of it. They want their French door, luxury, whatever, and they can afford it, right? Yeah. That's the difference. If you're selling a low income house, I think I actually commented on you had a post. Yeah. When I bought my house, when it was just me, I was single, I was poor as hell, right? Like I thought I stretched for this house. Like I thought I couldn't afford this house. It was way more than I needed. They had a beautiful stainless steel French door. Later found it was like a $3,000 fridge, right? I would never in my life afford a $3,000 fridge. Right. Even now, I'm like $3,000 for a refrigerator. I thought I won the lottery with that because I was lower income, right? Also, I spent all my money on buying this house. Yeah. So if it didn't have a fridge, I maybe wouldn't buy it. Yeah. So again, it's your avatar, right?
Well, I'll let you know because I'm doing some lower end shit right now, and I'm not putting.
I would love to see
case study. Yeah, case study.
And a perfect example is in this flip. I didn't put a washer and dryer. Okay. There's a hookup for them. It's a $500,000 flip. People want to buy their own washer and dryer. Yeah. I'm not going to buy something that now I have to pay to get somebody to remove it.
Well, the funny part is like $500,000, like where this house is, like that's like on the. it's $500,000 sounds
Is it a
like,
deal?
and now it's just kind of the norm.
It's the norm.
You know?
I mean, we paid $500,000 for our house, you know, but it was a bigger pain in the ass that we had to get rid of that refrigerator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what I did with this property, I didn't put ceiling fans in.
Okay.
Because if they want they're set up for ceiling fans. It's an option. But I'm not going to spend my money if they don't want them.
Absolutely.
You're right. But
Absolutely.
It's an option.
Yep.
So you had the forethought of getting it set up. But I'd be really curious, and I'd love to circle back with you on that.
I will certainly let you know.
Is there a difference between price point?
I will definitely let you know. But like it's something that just popped in my brain. Like the weird takeaway that I have from the more things that I do and the more experiences that I have, and even the more knowledge that I have and the more mentorship and everything, is that I don't fucking know anything. I don't know anything. All these things that I'm the same way. It's like I reverse engineer everything and I've thought of everything. And then something you come to find out that it's like, no, you didn't really know that much at all.
Yeah, right. But that's learning, right? Like that's life.
No, it is.
Like how much of life, and that's where, you know, I think the biggest takeaway from my experience and everything I learned is that you have to be able to, you're on your toes, right? Because
all the time.
Something
Everything's
pops
changing
up you didn't think of.
All the time.
And believe it or not, like this Airbnb that's crushing it on paper, it's my worst performing asset. So where the limitations are there is, and again, you don't know. In my head, I was like, this thing is going to be a cash cow. This is going to like kill it by everything it should. I've looked at every angle until you operate. And then you go, problem is it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's one family renting it, right? So you and your kids and your wife, you have a set limited budget, right? Mm-hmm. If it was you, your wife and your kids and another family, now I can charge double. Right. So it's the same thing with midterm rental. It's a 1-bedroom, but 2 people are paying it. Mm-hmm. Part of the other issue I'm having with the midterm is upstairs, I prefer to only rent to 1 person because of noise transference between. Downstairs is dog friendly. I don't allow pets upstairs because, again, transference of noise. But 1 person affording $2,200 a month is a lot harder to find than 2 people able to. So I'm finding that the Airbnb, we're not losing money. We're making money. We're profiting. But like you hear these stories of like, oh, I'm getting so rich on Airbnb.
Well, I think a lot of that shifted in the last year or two also. You know, regulations started happening. People stopped traveling as much. People are more broke now than they've ever been. Economies, it's there's a whole lot of variables playing into the equation.
And so what we actually lucked out, it's actually a midterm rental right now. So I actually got an insurance, I was telling you upstairs, an insurance rental. So a guy locally, his house burned down, unfortunately, and insurance is paying for him to stay at my Airbnb, and he's there for 9 months. Insurance rentals, you can jack the price up.
Yeah.
So let's say an average weekend is $500. I profit $500 a weekend. $500 on my Airbnb. People are paying like $800 to stay there for a weekend. So maybe after more, and I have a DSCR loan, which is killing me. It's at 8%. That's killing me. I need to cash out refinance. I got kind of screwed on an appraisal after the rehab. There was like $40K locked in there that should have come out initially. But like my husband said, he's like, but your mortgage isn't, like you're able to cover your mortgage, where if you had gotten the full ARV, the mortgage would have been harder to cover at 8% DSCR. But I'm making $3,200 a month. So maybe I was covering the mortgage and maybe making $200 a month, which isn't great, but it's paying for my vacation home.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was like, as long as I'm not losing money on it, I'm getting a free vacation home. And it's only been live 2 years, so it still is also, you know, a learning experience.
Yep.
5 stars, everything. $3,200 a month for 9 months. I'm making $2,000 a month profit. I'm going to make like $30,000 this year on one rental. So
doesn't suck.
Being able to pivot, right? Like,
yeah.
Where is there opportunity? And all that was I already have the systems for my furnished rentals. So it's nothing to just, sure, he can stay 9 months because I already have all these other systems set up.
Absolutely.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah. And having that being on your toes, right? And the problem was like spring sucks up there, right? Because it's still very cold, but there's no snow. So it's like that awkward period of like, who wants to go to the Poconos in like April?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So I put it up just looking for like, okay, if I can get like a 3-month, because last year we got a 3-month rental up there as well. A family was getting their kitchen renovated and they lived the town over in Mount Pocono, and they both worked from home. They couldn't be in their house while their kitchen was being renovated. So they rented basically the next door. They stayed for 4 months because the renovation took longer than expected.
No, does that happen sometimes?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's a Poconos thing. No.
Yeah.
And we made so much money doing that. I'm actually kind of considering, do I convert this to another midterm rental?
Okay.
Because it doesn't exist up there. Again,
right. Yeah.
What are other people not doing that makes your place unique? Everybody is a short-term rental up there. Mm-hmm. So when these insurance companies are looking for places, he's going to be there over summer, which is my cash flow. Like, we make $5,000 a month in summer. So it's kind of like, like, that's our high season.
Yep.
But he's also paying me so much more during low season where I would be losing money.
Right.
Right. So like the end of the day, pivoting to this strategy, and they had no other options because the people that are making killer money in the summer don't want to give it up for summer or don't have the systems and processes to do midterm.
Yeah.
So now my thought is, do I start investing in midterm up there? You know,
as we land the plane, if you could go back to like, I don't know, even before, well, I usually like to frame this like this, like knowing what you know now, if you could go back to when you started in real estate, would you have done anything differently?
No.
No.
Nope. No, because again, coming down to the opportunities, I tried. One of my favorite quotes is, everything you want is on the other side of fear. My favorite quotes. And in fact, I have a big poster in my office at home. Cause I get to work from home. Like, see, that's like the greatest thing. Like, cool. My husband has kind of a secure job. He's unemployed right now, but real estate's our fallback that I'm still making money that like we can pay our mortgage and we can survive, and I can't get fired from that. Yeah. And I make the decisions in the job, right? So with this flip, okay, well, it's the coolest thing in the world. We probably need money right now, right? Like my husband might be unemployed for several months. I can say, all right, you know what? I'm going to rent this and just cash out refi, take the money and use it for what we need it for. You got options. Right? So looking back on where I started 2020 to now, only 5 years, absolutely not. No, I'm proud of everything I've done. Even the flip, right? The flip, everybody told me just wholesale it and get rid of it. You can make almost the same amount of money wholesaling it and sell it to somebody else without all the headache. Mm-hmm. But it was a learning opportunity. Yep. It was a learning opportunity. It was the only opportunity I've had to do a full gut rehab where I'm not going to lose money. No matter how this plays out, no matter what, I'm not losing money. And if anything, I'm making a lot of money regardless. So it was safe. Learning opportunity of being able to manage contractors. I learned a lot from that. I learned, trust your judgment. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them, sort of thing. Yep. It's huge. Maybe I would do that. I think trusting my intuition about people a little bit more sometimes, particularly with contractors. Okay. I've been through the ringer with some of these contractors, where especially, the Poconos, I went through 3 contractors refixing other contractors' work. Can be brutal. It really can. Yeah. Yeah. If anywhere I lost money, it was trusting contractors, 1,000,000%. Well,
it's one of the hardest parts of the real estate business, the real estate industry. Ask 100 people and they'll all tell you like the biggest issue is, getting work done with people that are reputable, that you can trust, on time, on budget. So like construction's fucking hard.
And
you
gotta kiss a lot of frogs when you find your prince, you know, like, and
you really do.
That's been really tough. And I haven't found a solution for that. Right. Cause
I'm here to tell you, there is no solution.
There's no solution.
No, that's, if I can shed any wisdom on anything, it's that there is no magic pill on that.
For
and
sure.
so many people are searching, unfortunately, for the magic pill. It doesn't exist. You have to embrace that, you know, a lot of things are going to suck.
I've learned to do a lot of stuff myself. And that's where, again, like it's those decisions to immerse yourself in it. And when people say it's passive, if you want to be successful, it's not. And I know so many people that like, they scaled so quickly. They they paid property managers who dropped the ball. You have to manage your managers, right? Like constantly, there's no such thing as passive income if you want to be successful.
That's right.
So I think for me, the biggest thing, like perfect example I told you about, I should have sued a few contractors. I kind of, as much as I screen my tenants, I also have sort of stringent for contractors, right? So if I call you and we set up an appointment and you don't show the appointment and you don't call me back, you're done. First time.
Yep.
That's it. You just showed me who you are, right? You just showed me you have no respect for me, no respect for my job. You're not punctual. You're not accountable. You're done.
Yep.
And the one or two times that I gave them like, oh, okay, come back on Tuesday, they fucked up. They showed me who they were.
You learned from it.
I didn't believe them.
Yeah. Now you know. Now you have a process.
Right. So now it's literally like if I set up a time and place with you, like I had a contractor come out the other day and I said, can you text me 30 minutes before you come? I have 3 dogs. You know, I need to put them away. Yeah, sure thing. This was a week ago. He texted me 30 minutes before he came. I'm probably going to hire that guy. Something so simple as that. I was going to remind him that this morning, and that's something I need to like learn to kind of like let them prove you right or wrong.
Right.
And I was going to text him like, hey, just a reminder, can you just shoot me a heads up when you're on your way? And I was like, no, let me see if he does.
Yep.
And he did.
There you go.
And that, like, I worked for a renovation company. We worked with investors to help manage their rehabs for them with working with the contractors and whatnot. And I was COO of the company. And it was a startup, so it was all still just like a learning process as we went. And the owner said he was listening to a podcast where they talked about a cleaning lady who would bake cookies. And after she was done cleaning, she would bake cookies, and that was kind of like a little extra that like she added on as a value thing. And, you know, she got extra business because of this little extra touch. And the whole idea of the podcast is, what's your cookie, right? Like, what is that little extra thing that you're doing right? And I really like put a lot of thought into it. And I was like, just doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's you don't need cookies. If she sucked at cleaning, the cookies mean nothing, right?
Yep, that's right.
If you came in and she said she was going to clean your house and you come in and the house is filthy, it smells like cookies, she's not going to get the cleaning job. So like, just do what you say you're going to do. Is just, and today's world, it's so sad that that's how low that bar is. But like, so many people just don't do what they say they're going to do. Yeah. And part of the reason I'm rated 5 stars in the midterm on everything is because I do what I say I'm going to do.
It's huge. It's everything.
They call me with a complaint and it's fixed within a week. And if it can't be fixed within a week, it's like constant communication. Like, hey, I know this happened. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. It's just that update.
Yep.
And I've gotten so much feedback. It's interesting because when you read, not to like toot my own horn, but when you read the reviews, they mention me more than the property.
That totally makes sense.
In everything.
Totally makes sense.
And it blows my mind because you're specific, even the Airbnb, they're mentioning me more than the property. And it's like, that was a real kind of pivot turning point of like, the service you provide in this experience again matters.
Yeah.
More so than even the product. Like we always joke with the Airbnb, we should have like a smart switch that you can like turn off the internet. Because what happens is there's been times where our internet's gone out and it's no fault of our own. It's a storm coming by, a snowstorm, whatever. The internet goes out and they communicate with me and I'm communicating with service provider and, you know, sorry, it's an outage, blah, 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 blah. We've gotten better reviews when there's been a problem that's been resolved.
Really?
Than nothing happening. And there's
an interesting takeaway.
Yeah. So we always joke that we should just have like a power kill switch that we turn off the internet.
Yeah. I'm going to solve that for you.
And then you solve the problem. Right.
I love that.
These little minor things. People renting my old house. Again, this $3,000 smart fridge that was like, I've made it, right? Like I have a French door with like smart buttons. I still to this day don't know what happened. They moved in. I think Pico maybe turned the power off, like when it was switching out of my name into their name.
Yeah.
I lived there for 5 years, had not a single issue with this refrigerator, and it died the day they moved in. Which in my brain is like, it's either user error, like they did something.
Right. Yeah, there had to be something.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the only other thing I could think of was Pico and smart fridge, and maybe power surged.
Yeah, still.
I don't
know. Who knows?
But at the end of the day, I was like, this is great because now I can get rid of this smart fridge that was going to cause nothing but problems.
Yep.
And put in a dumb fridge that
does
its job.
Go with the dumb fridge.
The dumb fridge that keeps food cool. Like
Yep.
at the end of the day, that's what a refrigerator is for.
Totally.
Day they moved in, they have a problem, right? So that's not a good start to
them
usually thinking
not.
that this house, whatever, but 2 days later, they had a new fridge. Good. Now, they just renewed their lease. And again, I'm making $1,300 a month. Cash flow, $1,300 a month. They just renewed their lease and said, we love living here. Like, not only just like, yeah, sure, we'll stay. And you want to talk about turnovers? Provide good value. I don't think I've had one tenant in the midterm rentals not renew.
Yeah.
Not one. They, like, not one left at the end of their lease. They renewed.
Yeah.
3 months, 3 months, 3 months.
I love that.
But again, it's just, you don't need a cookie.
Yeah. I love that.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Do what you say you're going to do.
The bar is so low. It's horrible to say, but it's like, that's it.
That is a perfect way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Be
and
successful.
You can make a lot of money in real estate.
So much money. And be secure and safe and, you know, everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Kira, thanks so much for coming
Absolutely.
in.
I'm so
Greatly
glad.
appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So
Appreciate
great to finally
you.
meet you, too.
Absolutely. Boom.
Subscribe.